Hello there, and welcome. Settle your body as if placing a smooth stone in a shallow bowl, and let the breath arrive and leave like a soft tide gliding over sand. This is a quiet passage through water and oceans, through the gentle science of a blue world that has been calming itself for billions of years. Tonight we travel slowly, and we will not strain for anything. We will pick up simple truths the way you might collect small shells at dusk, turning each one in the light to feel its curve, then setting it down again. If the mind wanders, let it wander as sea fog wanders across a harbor, thinning and gathering, never needing to be controlled. What matters is the rhythm, and the rhythm is already here. Imagine Earth from far above, a sphere turning with the silent poise of a sleeping animal. Most of what you see is water, a deep dusk blue that wraps the continents in a soft embrace. This is the first fact worth resting inside. Oceans cover the majority of our world, and they hold the planet's memory of heat and cold. Water warms slowly, cools slowly, and in its patience we are steadied. Storms may scrawl quick, bright signatures across the surface, but beneath them, the vastness keeps time with a slower metronome. To recognize your smallness in that expanse is not to feel insignificant. It is to feel held, as a pebble is held in a river's palm. Consider a sip of water. It seems ordinary, a nearly invisible thread on the tongue, yet each molecule has lived a long, adventurous life. The same H2O that touches your lips may once have drifted as mist over coral gardens, slept inside a glacier's blue heart, tapped against a cave roof as a droplet learning patience, or hovered in the breath of ancient forests. Water circles without hurry, ocean to cloud, cloud to rain, rain to river, river to sea. The cycle is endless and faithful, and your body is quietly woven into it. With every exhale you give water back to the air, with every inhale you take in the air, polished by the sea. Exchange is continuous, and you do not have to manage any of it. Now feel for the slow breath of the planet, made visible by tides. The moon leans its pale weight upon the oceans, and the water responds with a rise and a fall that repeats like a lullaby. Shorelines fill and empty, bays breathe in and out, salt marshes bow and lift their grass. The mathematics is exact, but the sensation is tender, gravity composing a cradle song. When your thoughts are quick and choppy, let them rest in this certainty: the ocean will return, and it will recede, and there is nothing to fix. Your lungs already keep this time. Inhale like a gentle flood. Exhale like a patient ebb. The body is an estuary where tides and heartbeats meet. Water's kindness shows in its quiet properties. It holds heat generously, buffering sharp swings between day and night. It gathers in droplets that cling to leaves and webbing, each bead round with surface tension, each one a tiny magnifying glass. For the morning, most miraculous, perhaps, is the gentle rebellion of ice that floats. Because solid water is less dense than liquid water, winter lakes seal themselves with a protective lid, and below the lid, a living room remains. Fish move in unhurried silver arcs. Plants go on with their small green work. Microorganisms keep time with chemistry's soft ticking. The world's frigid hand cannot close entirely, because the water refuses to sink when it hardens. It is a domestic mercy written into physics. Light behaves differently in water, and that difference is a balm. In the shallows, sunlight scatters and sings, painting the sand in shifting tessellations. Turquoise blooms where light is plentiful and the path is short. Deeper out, red disappears first, then orange and gold, until only blue remains, like a final song sustained. Deeper still, the blue dims to indigo. Then midnight. This gentle fading turns the ocean into a gradient of quietness. Let your thoughts follow that slope, from bright, busy surface toward a slower depth where colors simplify. Down there, the pressure is steady and cradling, and the noise of the day dissolves like silt settling after a passing oar. The ocean is a cathedral of sound. Vibrations travel farther in water than in air, and so storms miles away ring the basin with low bells, and the voices of whales meet, braid, and glide along hidden channels. There is a layer in the sea where temperature and pressure guides sound efficiently, and within it, songs can wander like faithful travelers. Imagine your mind as such a channel. Each soothing fact we set within it is a bell struck once, its tone fading slowly, leaving a pleasant hush behind. You do not need to chase meaning here. Meaning will unfurl on its own, a kelp frond uncoiling toward the soft, filtered light. Sometimes the sea writes with fire. Tiny organisms near the surface keep a lantern within their chemistry, and when disturbed by a wave or a distant oar, they flare. Edges of breakers glow. Footsteps in damp sand leave silver ghosts. A fish becomes a brushstroke of cold flame. This is bioluminescence, a real and patient magic that asks nothing of you except attention. In the mind, disturbances happen, too, little surges of worry or memory. Let them light briefly and float away. No ripple lasts. The dark is not an emptiness. It is a cradle for sparks that come and go without scarring the night. At the edges where ocean meets land, unhurried architectures hold the shore. Mangroves raise their roots like gentle scaffolds, catching sediment, calming waves, giving shelter to the small and the newly made. Kelp forests sway with the precision of slow metronomes, their fronds measuring time the way trees measure wind. Coral builds by patience alone, grain by grain, creature by creature, until reefs teach powerful waters to whisper. Even sand does its part, flowing in longshore rivers, forming bars and spits and crescent bays that soften the coastline's line. You can model your inner borders after these places. A mind that turns incoming force into lace, that breaks the heavy waves into manageable, bright foam. Let us honor rain too, because it is the ocean visiting. Stand under a gentle shower in your imagination and watch each droplet arrive with a circular signature, a widening ring that fades into the calm around it. Thoughts are like that. Arrivals that announce themselves, widen, then vanish into the greater surface. Counting them is less restful than letting them pass. The world's arithmetic is not about ownership, but exchange: clouds borrowing vapor, hills loaning runoff, rivers carrying stories, the sea receiving and keeping them without complaint. Return is the rule. Nothing is lost, only transformed, only carried gently from one state to the next. And then there is the quiet intimacy that water has with us. Most of your body is water arranged into a human shape, tuned to pulse and breath and warmth. Think of your bloodstream as a river system, branching and rejoining, ferrying oxygen with the devotion a tide shows the moonlit shore. Think of your lungs as a pair of small seas that rise and fall without being asked. The recognition you feel in the presence of waves or rain is not coincidence, it is kinship. You are a member of the ocean's extended family, a mobile lagoon with hands and language, remembering home whenever you hear the hush of breakers or the soft vowels of a stream. So tonight, as we settle into these gentle facts, let the pace be slow. We will move from breadth to detail, from open ocean to luminous plankton, from tides to fog, from kelp to moonlit sand. Each truth will be a cushion beneath the mind. Each image, a curtain of calm drawn across the bright windows of wakefulness. If sleep arrives while we are still walking the shoreline together, let it arrive the way a high tide does inevitable, generous, covering every sharp shell and leaving only smoothness behind. If sleep comes later, then let these waters keep company with you until it does, steady and kind. Either way, the ocean's patience is yours to borrow, for as long as you need. A planet wrapped in blue. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine drifting outward, past rooftops and weather, past the slow lanes where clouds idle, past the thin veil of air that keeps our skin warm. Imagine continuing until the grasses and rivers reduce to threads, until even the mountain chains fold into soft ridges like the creases in a sleeping hand. Keep rising until a hush takes hold, the kind of hush that belongs to big distances. From here, the planet gathers itself into a single round thought, turning at a patient, ancient pace. And what you see, before anything else, is blue. Not a single blue, but a living quilt of it. Slate and indigo, turquoise and dusk, lacquered sapphire in places of calm, ink dark, where depth opens like a door. Oceans don't merely lie upon Earth. They wrap it, carry it, and teach it to breathe evenly. To look at our home from space is to notice first its water, and to feel, in the center of your chest, a small and steadying relief that the majority is fluid and forgiving. All that blue is not decoration. It is the planet's memory, storing sunlight as if in great, slow libraries. Water warms reluctantly and cools reluctantly, so the oceans turn sharp, hurrying weather into softened, deliberate seasons. Whole continents lean on this steadiness, the way a child might lean against a steady shoulder in a moving crowd. The seas shoulder the heat of summer without complaint, then release it into winter with a generosity that keeps frost and flame from ruling the day. You can rest in that thought. Somewhere out there, beyond the familiar horizon, large bodies are caring for small ones, and the balance does not ask for your attention. It is already arranged. You are allowed to sink into it without a task list. From above, the boundary between ocean and atmosphere blurs in, a way that calms the heart. What we call sky and sea are partners in a long conversation, trading vapor and heat, drafting clouds, opening rain. The ocean lifts itself into the air grain by grain of invisible mist. The air gathers and cools these offerings into soft caravans that cross deserts and mountain spines, and the earth drinks what arrives. The water then sets out again through soil and root, through brook and river, returning to the mother blue with the kind of fidelity that makes lullabies believable. The cycle is a patient circle, drawn over and over for billions of years, a script the planet never forgets. Knowing this, the mind loosens its grip, because the world itself is practicing return and release on a scale so grand it dwarfs our personal weather. The colors that arise from these waters soothe, for reasons our bodies understand without explanation. In the shallows, sand brightens the tone, and the sunlight scatters into gentle geometries. Over continental shelves, the palette cools as depth gathers. Beyond the shelves, colors subtract themselves in a dependable order until only blue endures, then dims into a midnight that is not menacing but immensely quiet. This gentle fade is not just optics. It is a lesson in how to move inward. Let your thoughts follow the color down through the spectrum, from the chatter of bright surface to the unhurried hush of indigo. As red and orange fall away, so do urgency and noise. As yellow and green soften, so does the clench behind your eyes. Blue remains, the longest traveler, and with it a sense of duration. Even deeper, the colors concede fully to darkness, and the darkness is not emptiness. It is a thick, protective night, where life continues by other lanterns. Seen from this distance, waves are less individual events and more the skin's breathing. Wind leans, pressure shifts, and the sea writes its graceful script of ridges and troughs across entire basins. Energy passes from crest to crest, like a message whispered along a long table, while the water itself mostly rises and falls in place, participating without being carried away. This is a comforting structure for the restless mind. The notion that motion can pass through you without stealing you, that you can lift and settle with the day's energies, and remain, essentially, where you are. In that way, the body becomes a little bay, open to the ocean's language yet sheltered from its force. The blue mantle is also a maker of weather's shape, calming suddenness into story. Over warm currents, air takes up moisture and grows buoyant. Over cooler tracks, it gives that moisture back as clouds that stitch the sky with grays and pearls. Storms are born, travel, dissipate, and leave the world rinsed. From far above, even the most dramatic spirals of a hurricane appear as a precise choreographed motion, a pinwheel turning in obedience to thermodynamics. While the damage on the ground is never to be romanticized, the form, as seen from the quiet of orbit, reminds us that order underlies motion, and that nature's great engines are bound by rules that can be learned and respected. There is comfort in that. Too, things happen for reasons, and with knowledge, harms can be reduced and safe harbors found. The life that the oceans cradle is uncountable and understated. From this height, you cannot see whales ferrying their slow wisdom along invisible highways, or the tiny drifting gardens of phytoplankton that gild the surface with a green so faint it is more suggestion than color. But you can know they are there, and that their breathing and photosynthesis help keep the planet's air composition hospitable to your own lungs. The big blue does not only store heat, it also breathes for us, taking in carbon and exhaling oxygen through the patient labor of microscopic beings. To hold this in mind as you settle toward sleep is to feel the intimacy of the distant. The ocean is not merely scenery, it is kin, working on your behalf while you are cooking dinner, while you are laughing with a friend, while you are closing your eyes. There is a gentle paradox here that soothes like a warm cloth laid over the eyes. The oceans are vast beyond easy comprehension, yet their most powerful gifts are familiar, cooling, moistening, steadying. They are planetary, and they are domestic. The water that steadies climates across hemispheres is the same substance that warms to your bath, the same that gathers as a glass bead on a leaf, the same that stills itself in your favorite cup before you drink. This continuity collapses distance. The blue seen from space is the water in your cells, reorganized and named by your body. The line between out there and in here grows porous, and with that porosity comes ease. And then, the moon. From the outer vantage, you can trace the pull that arranges the tides, a slow choreography between our world and its companion. The moon's gravity draws a bulge of ocean toward it, and on the opposite side another bulge answers, while the planet turns through this elongated cloak of water. Shores feel the lift and fall, estuaries inhale and exhale, and people along coasts set their clocks by a rhythm older than language. You too can set your breathing by it. A long, generous inhale for the rising tide, a soft, unforced exhale for the falling. Each cycle, proof that holding and releasing are both part of the same kindness. If you keep gazing, you notice the blue is not uniform in shape. Currents trace sinuous roads across it, warm rivers running within the sea, cold counterflows braiding them, gyres gathering floating things into slow spirals. These are the ocean's highways and roundabouts, moving heat and salt and life in patterns that take years or centuries to complete. The patience of these circuits is encouraging in nights when you feel late or out of step. The world keeps to its long routes, regardless of our little clocks. Warmth remembers where it must go. Nutrients remember where they are needed. The large circulations do not scold you for being tired. They turn and turn and turn, and you can let that turning cradle you. Even the planet's outline, from up here, seems softened by the blue. Edges of continents wear foam like lace. Islands sew themselves into necklaces across the dark cloth of oceanic plates. peninsulas reach and are embraced. This visual gentleness flows inward and begins to uncurl the knots within the mind. The imagination leans into the curves, away from the angles. You can feel it as a loosening in the jaw, a small release in the shoulders, the breath finding its slowest and easiest pace. The big picture, the literal big picture of a blue world turning, whispers that you may safely shrink your attention now, may let today's details smudge and blur, because the great systems are steady and do not require your watch. And so, drifting in that imagined distance, you return more softly to where you lie. The ceiling is no longer a ceiling, but a pale, shallow sky. The pillow is a small, warm shore. Your body becomes a quiet gulf touched by moonlight. The world outside your window continues to turn under its mantle of water, and the water continues to carry heat and memory and life without asking for a single effort from you. Let this be enough for now. Earth is wrapped in blue, and you are wrapped in rest. Let that simple symmetry be the last thought you need to hold before the tide of sleep rises and carries you, unhurried, into its gentle dark. 2 ancient drops, endless journey. Close your eyes and hold in the open palm of your attention a single drop of water. Let it be round and patient, a small crystal globe that gathers light and steadies it. Imagine, if you like, the path that brought this one small traveler to you. It is older than your city, older than the mountains beyond your city, older than the language that names those mountains. The atoms within it were forged in beginnings far beyond weather, and the molecule itself has been assembled and disassembled countless times by sunlight and wind, by soil and leaf, and the quiet arithmetic of temperature. If you follow it backward in time, you will lose count of its transformations, and in that losing there is comfort. This drop has never hurried, yet it has always arrived. The journey often begins where we notice it least, on the skin of the sea under a thoughtful sun. There, an invisible migration rises at all hours. Heat loosens the bonds between neighboring molecules, and some slip free, lifting from liquid to vapor with a kind of hush, too soft for ears, but not for the imagination. They join the air and are carried, not in straight lines, but in swirls and steps, jostling gently against nitrogen and oxygen, bumping into salts and pollen, and the fine dust that sails the world. Each speck in the sky can be a seed for the future, a small nucleus around which water will gather when the time cools. In this way, the ocean breathes into the atmosphere millions upon millions of tiny exhalations, uncounted and continuous. As the risen vapor travels, it meets heights where the air is thinner and the temperature is kinder to condensation. Here, contact with coolness persuades those roaming molecules to link hands again. Droplets form, first as delicate families too light to fall, then as growing clusters that find their weight. A cloud is not a heavy thing. It is a slow celebration of reunions, a flock of water returning to itself. Some clouds roam as caravans for days, herded by winds that know the shape of continents. Some bloom and vanish in a single afternoon, a little theater above a field, white curtains drawn and opened by sun. Rain is the word we give to that moment when droplet crosses threshold, when weight overcomes the lift of the air, and gravity writes a downward invitation. Each falling drop is shaped by its own passage, rounded, then flattened, then round, again wobbled by air that presses more here, less there. They arrive with signatures soft at first, then quick, then soft again on leaf, on roof, on river. Some of the water returns to sky from the very surface it touches, a little rebound made of heat and timing. Some slips inward, meeting the earth not as an end but as a doorway. There is a quiet pleasure in remembering that return is always built into the descent. Below the surface, the drop becomes a listener. Soil receives it with pores and passages, each grain a small gatekeeper. Downward it goes, or sideways along capillaries of clay, pooling briefly in secret caves between particles, joining with neighbors to form water that is not seen but is present. This is the beginning of groundwater, and it moves like a slow thought. In some places it meanders through shallow layers, resurfacing as springs after a season's journey. In other places it descends to deep aquifers and rests, not for hours but for centuries, sometimes for millennia. A patient savings account the planet keeps. Lakes underground, rivers underground, whole blue maps drawn in darkness. These are chapters in the drop's long memoir, written without light, yet full of continuity. From rock to root, the pathway narrows, and here the drop learns a different language. Plants reach with threads finer than hair, each rootlet sheathed in cells that welcome the molecule inward. Through osmosis and the pull of transpiration, the plant's own soft wind, made by leaves, opening their pores to the day water climbs. It moves against gravity not by defiance, but by partnership. Soil to root, root to stem, stem to leaf, leaf to sky. The tree becomes a fountain held in stillness, lifting columns of water through xylem tubes narrower than the finest straw. A climb measured not in splashes but in steady gatherings. At the leaf, sunlight works its gentle chemistry, and the water that arrived becomes part of sugar, part of shade, part of the cool exhale that humidifies the afternoon. The drop may be released again as vapor from the leaf's tiny mouths, returning to the air softened and perfumed by green life. Sometimes the journey asks for cold. In high valleys and polar sheets, the drop meets a night that is long and precise, and there it stills into a crystal. As snow, it finds companions with the same six-armed geometry, and settles into a quilt that muffles sound. As ice, it becomes architecture layer upon layer of winters pressed into clarity, bubbles like small moons trapped within. In glaciers, the movement is glacial in the truest sense, an almost imperceptible river of stone blue flowing downhill under its own immense weight. Years pass, and the drop that once rode a summer cloud rides now a patient keel of ice, until a margin thins and a meltwater stream awakens beneath the frozen roof, singing a silver thread toward daylight, toward the broader world. By slope and seep and the gift of confluence, drops gather into call, rivulets, rivulets into streams, streams into rivers that draw their cursive across continents. Here the journey quickens, but even quickness can be soothing when it follows a familiar bed. Banks guide, eddies cradle. Meanders practice their looping script in the wide alluvial rooms where time slows again. Along the way, the water picks up the stories of the land minerals dissolved from old mountains, the cool shade memory of overhanging willows, hints of soil that will become a delta. When at last river meets sea, the return is not abrupt, but a mingling. Freshness and saltiness learn each other in estuaries, where herons write their thin hieroglyphs in mud, and tides lift nursery fish on their first small voyages. The ocean that receives the river is not a final page, but a chapter that rewrites itself. Surface waters wander, dive, and rise again along the great conveyor of currents driven by temperature and salt. Warm water moves poleward, cool water returns equatorward, and the drop, that once fell as rain in a quiet garden, may, given time, find itself in the indigo calm between continents. Then, in an upwelling that brings deep nutrients to a coast, bright with plankton, then again in the bright slick, where wind draws cat's paw textures on the skin of the sea. Each turn is unhurried. Each residence is long enough to learn the room. There are other doors on the journey mist that lifts from a meadow at dawn when the ground is warmer than the air. Fog that drifts in from the sea and wraps the headlands in a cool shawl. Dew that condenses on a blade of grass and tips it into a single shining bow. There is hoarfrost that traces filigree against a window on a still night. A white garden born of quiet breath. There is the brief theater of a puddle that mirrors the weather and then vanishes into air as if it had dreamed itself. Even in these small episodes, the drop keeps faith with the larger pattern: arrival, rest, return. Think, too, of the way memory is carried. The drop is not only wetness, it is a courier for heat, for trace salts, for tiny dissolved stories of rock and leaf and distant shore. When it evaporates, it takes energy with it, a quiet theft that cools a brow, calms a leaf, eases a shore. When it condenses, it gives that energy back, feeding the engines that build clouds and shape storms. In this exchange, the atmosphere finds its pathways, and the planet keeps its balance. You do not have to track the calculus. Your body recognizes the comfort of this evenness. It is the same relief you feel when a room is well ventilated, when a breeze knows just what to do with your heat. If the mind feels busy, let it follow one drop through a single day. At morning it rises from a harbor as vapor, climbs the invisible staircase above the quay, meets a breath of cooler air over the hills, and finds itself in a cloud the color of dove feathers. By noon, it is part of a fine rain that blesses a field of barley, slipping into soil where roots offer welcome. By afternoon, it is drawn upward through a stalk, tasting green and sunlight, released as a sigh from the leaf's underside into the early evening air. Night gathers, temperatures fall, and it becomes part of dew that beads along a fence wire, holding a tiny, upside-down moon in its roundness. At first light, it lifts again, and the day begins. No hurry, no delay, only the rhythm that has always been. And so, when you drink, when you listen to rain on the roof, when you watch a kettle bloom with steam, you are in communion with an endless journey that asks nothing complicated of you. The drop does not demand attention to move. It moves because movement is its nature. It returns because return is its home. Let that be a lullaby under the skin tonight. Ancient drops, endless pathways, every state a place to rest, every rest a way to continue. The cycle goes on, and you may close your eyes within it, floating, returning, floating again. 3. The ocean's calm heartbeat. If you stand on a quiet shore at dawn, when the light is only beginning to unfasten the night, you can feel the ocean breathe. It is not a figure of speech. The rise and fall you hear and see, the gentle lapping against sand, the steady pulse that draws pebbles forward and then returns them, is a real respiration, as measurable as the breath in your chest. The ocean has tides because it listens to the moon, and the moon, silent and faithful, is always speaking in the language of gravity. The pull between them is subtle, but it reaches across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, a soft, invisible thread tying water to light. That thread tightens and loosens twice each day, and the result is the planet's heartbeat. The slow, planetary in and out that all coasts share. Imagine now that you are that thread. Feel the pull of the moon, not a sharp tug, but a suggestion, like someone brushing the edge of your sleeve. As Earth turns beneath it, this pull travels across the oceans, drawing water toward its direction, lifting vast expanses by only a meter or two, yet shifting unimaginable weight. It is almost too delicate for comprehension, the whole ocean flexing, yet no single drop feels strained. Every atom participates, every wavelet answers, and from this mass coordination emerges rhythm. On the far side of the planet, another bulge balances the first, drawn outward by inertia, the way your arms lift slightly when you spin. Together they move around the world in perpetual motion, never hurrying, never pausing, their timing perfect to the second. Tides remind us that even the immense can be tender. The moon's touch is gentle, but its persistence shapes coasts, sculpts deltas, and conducts the migration of countless creatures. Along the shoreline, Crabs time their scuttling to its rhythm. Barnacles and mussels feed when the water returns. Tiny fish dart into flooded grasses to feed and hide. The moon's gravity is not merely a force, it is a keeper of time, a metronome for lives that would otherwise drift without measure. As you breathe now, picture that same rhythm scaled upward until it fits the curve of the planet. You inhale, the tide rises. You exhale, the tide retreats. You are, in this way, a small sea shaped by a smaller moon, following a pattern that began long before lungs were invented. The earliest humans learned to trust this pattern before they could name it. They built their first calendars by watching the shore. When the moon grew full, the tides stretched farthest inland, flooding estuaries and carrying fish to shallow beds. When it waned, the water fell back, leaving salt flats that baked into glittering plains. Even now, in coastal villages, people speak of spring tides and neaps, their routines quietly synchronized with lunar breath. Ships plan their departures by it. Scientists time their measurements to it. Children dig tidal pools where anemones open and close, like slow underwater flowers. The same law of motion that holds galaxies in orbit also fills and empties a child's sandcastle moat. In this knowledge, something relaxes in us. There is peace in realizing that order lives inside motion. So often, the human day feels jagged, too many obligations, too many abrupt beginnings and endings. But the tide reminds us that movement need not be violent to be complete. It is change without crisis, transformation without rupture. The shoreline may seem in constant flux, yet it is always returning to itself. Each wave, each rise and fall, is an affirmation that departure and return are two halves of the same gesture. The mind, when it learns this, begins to rest more easily. If you could listen to the tide as a sound slowed down to the rhythm of a human heart, you might hear something like a pulse, deep and steady. Scientists have found that when large tidal masses move, they create infrasonic waves, vibrations so low that our ears cannot detect them, but our bodies sometimes can. The ground hums, ever so, slightly, with the ocean's breathing. This background music of the planet is continuous. It resonates through the seafloor and the continental shelves, merging with the long note of wind and the faint tremors of the Earth's crust. Even now, wherever you are, this song moves through you. The same low pulse that rocks the coral reefs and shapes the sands beneath Arctic ice passes invisibly through your bones. The scale differs, but the rhythm aligns. When water withdraws, it reveals stories written in sand. Small shells gleam like punctuation marks. The footprints of shorebirds stitch the surface with patient hieroglyphs. In tidal flats, rivulets snake toward the retreating surf, silver and quick. Each pattern is temporary, erased by the next incoming wave, yet the cycle gives meaning to impermanence. Nothing stays, yet nothing is lost. The outgoing water carries the sand grains it borrowed and later returns them, rearranged but intact. In this endless exchange, the ocean teaches a quiet philosophy: to hold lightly, to let go easily, to trust that what leaves will find its own way home. The moon does not act alone. The sun, vast and steady, adds its own gravitational pull, strengthening tides when its force joins the moon's, weakening them when the two are opposed. These alignments create the spring and neap tides, the grand breathings and the quiet ones. Twice each month, the three bodies, sun, earth, moon, line up in an invisible harmony, and the ocean responds with its deepest inhalation. During neaps, when the pulls partially cancel, the water rests closer to the mean, a tranquil pause between extremes. It is a cosmic conversation, and we are privileged to overhear it in the language of waves on shore. Imagine now the deep sea responding to this conversation, far below the surface. Where light is a stranger, the tidal current still whispers. Whole columns of water, thousands of meters thick, sway back and forth with the lunar rhythm. This motion stirs nutrients, carrying oxygen and life through the depths. Even the creatures of the abyss, jellyfish, like translucent clocks, fish that shine faintly as if remembering daylight, live by the moon's pacing. When the tide rises above, it changes the pressure below. A message of subtle shifts transmitted through tons of liquid weight. They answer by drifting upward or downward, adjusting their buoyancy, performing small dances that echo across miles. In their movement there is no rush, only participation in the great slow pulse that keeps them and us alive. In coastal marshes, the tide writes its second story. Here, grasses bend and straighten as if breathing themselves. Mud flats appear and disappear, feeding birds that arrive precisely when the water withdraws. Mangroves, with their root lattices, drink the tide and exhale it again. This rhythm is a clock for entire ecosystems, each species tuned to an interval. When the tide fails, when human dams or climate shifts interrupt its motion, everything listens in confusion. But when it returns, even after long absence, life resumes its choreography as if no time had passed. That resilience, that faith in pattern, is something we might borrow when our own days feel disrupted. As night falls again, the moon takes its place above the darkened sea. The silver road it paints across the water is not just light but instruction, a reminder that gravity, though unseen, is gentle enough to be beautiful. You may walk along the shore and watch the foam creep toward your toes, pause, and slip away again. Each approach feels personal, as if the ocean were breathing with you. Perhaps it is. The molecules that make up your blood once belonged to these tides. The sodium that salts your tears is kin to the salt that gives the ocean taste. In the chemistry of your body, the moon already has a voice. You are the echo of its call. When sleep begins to edge closer, imagine lying in that pulse. Picture your body floating just beyond the breakers, the water rocking you with the same certainty it shows to the continents. Beneath you, the current slides outward. Above you, the wind hums low. You drift neither forward nor back, simply suspended in rhythm. The tide rises again, folding you in warmth. The tide falls, loosening you toward rest. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the moon keeps its watch, tracing its endless orbit, calling, answering, calling again. The earth follows, obedient and calm. And within that conversation, you are a small silence, a single breath in a vast, serene heartbeat that never ends. For water's quiet magic. There is a gentleness in water that belies its power. We are used to thinking of oceans as mighty and dangerous, of floods and storms, of waves rising tall enough to shatter cliffs. Yet beneath that strength lies something far more mysterious and comforting. A series of small, almost invisible miracles, written into the very structure of water itself. They are not loud miracles. They are quiet, almost shy. But they are the reason you are here, the reason this world remains soft enough for life to take hold. If you look closely at a single drop of water, not just with your eyes but with the curiosity of calm attention, you begin to notice its personality. 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, arranged in a shape that looks like a tiny letter V. It is such a simple form, yet from that angle arises everything we know. The snowflake, the tear, the cloud, the wave. The hydrogen side of the molecule carries a slight positive charge, while the oxygen side holds a gentle negative one. This imbalance is the source of water's tenderness. Molecules reach out to one another like neighbors, offering hands, bonding lightly, never too tightly, always ready to let go and rejoin. They form chains and clusters, temporary friendships that last a fraction of a second and then rearrange. Within this constant movement, lies stability, a flexibility so perfect that it allows both order and chaos to coexist. Because of these bonds, water behaves unlike anything else. It clings to itself, forming droplets that hold shape even in midair. It stretches along leaves and spider silk, a necklace of tiny globes trembling but intact. This cohesion, this self-embrace, is why raindrops gather and why rivers can run in unbroken ribbons. And water's surface, though it appears delicate, has the strength to support weight that seems impossible. A pond skater glides over its glassy skin, legs dimpling but never breaking through. Each footstep is a conversation between gravity and tension, and water, generous and polite, always answers softly. Its capacity to hold heat is another quiet wonder. Water warms slowly and cools slowly, like a patient teacher. When sunlight touches the sea, much of that warmth slips downwards through the depths, stored as a calm reservoir. Later, when air turns cold, the ocean releases what it has kept, smoothing the sharp edge of winter. This is why islands and coastal lands feel temperate, wrapped in the ocean's memory of sun. It is why life itself could begin here, in a world where temperature shifts were gentle enough for chemistry to become biology. Every creature that moves, every leaf that opens in spring, every breath that carries warmth, owes something to water's steady heart. But perhaps the most delicate kindness of all is ice. When most substances freeze, they become heavier. Their molecules pack closer, sinking beneath the liquid they came from. Water does the opposite. As it solidifies, it expands, its molecules locking into open lattices that trap tiny pockets of air. Ice floats, a small phrase, but a large mercy. Because ice drifts rather than sinks, lakes freeze from the top down, forming a thin shield that protects the living world beneath. Fish move slowly under its cover. Plants rest. The ecosystem sleeps but does not perish. The ocean, too, keeps its depths alive through this anomaly. If water behaved like everything else, if frozen seawater fell instead of floating, the bottom of the ocean would have become an eternal vault of ice ages ago. The planet would be silent. The strange compassion written into a molecule's geometry is the difference between a frozen world and a living one. Even the way water changes state holds grace. To evaporate, it must absorb energy, drawing heat from its surroundings, which cools the surface it leaves behind. This is why sweat cools skin, why forests feel so temperate under summer's hand, why lakes and rivers soothe the air. When water condenses again into cloud or dew, it releases that hidden warmth, returning the borrowed energy to the sky. A perfect exchange. Take, give, take again. A never-ending balance that maintains Earth's tender climate. Nothing wasted, nothing hoarded. Water's wisdom lies in circulation. There is also a secret tucked into the way water dissolves the world. It is called the universal solvent because it accepts so many substances into its body: salt, sugar, minerals, even gases from the air. This capacity might seem purely chemical, but there is poetry in it too. Water is endlessly hospitable. It carries with equal grace the nutrients a seedling needs to sprout and the salts that flavor the sea. It picks up the memory of everything it touches, becomes the biography of its landscape. When you drink from a mountain spring, you are sipping a summary of stone and rain and time. Each molecule carries whispers from places you have never seen. When rain falls on a leaf, surface tension shapes it into beads that cling stubbornly until the weight is too great. Then they slip away, leaving the leaf lighter. You could think of this as physics, or you could think of it as a small metaphor for release. Water knows when to hold, and it knows when to let go. It practices detachment without abandonment, contact without control. Watch the slow drip from a branch. After a storm, each drop grows until it finds its freedom. In that instant between clinging and falling, there is a pause so elegant it could be called grace. The same laws that let raindrops balance on leaves also allow clouds to float. A cloud may look solid from below, but it is a fragile congregation of droplets suspended by the very air they emerged from. Billions of tiny spheres drift together, each obeying the same rules of attraction and balance that govern oceans. When light passes through them, it scatters into white. When the sun sinks low, the colors deepen into rose and gold, proof that water, even in the sky, can carry beauty lightly. Every sunset is an experiment in refraction, every twilight a lesson in how to hold light without keeping it. Water is never still, even when it seems to be. Beneath the surface of a pond, molecular dances continue, bonds breaking, bonds reforming, vibrations passing from one particle to another. This restless calm teaches something about peace, that it does not require the absence of movement, only the harmony of it. The ocean's stillness at dawn, a glassy expanse mirroring clouds, is alive with motion you cannot see. Currents twist below, plankton drift, light filters through as columns of gold dust. The appearance of calm is simply motion in agreement with itself. Perhaps the same could be true of us, that serenity is not the stopping of thought, but the aligning of thoughts until they flow together without friction. When sunlight meets a wave, it refracts and reflects, breaking into ribbons of brightness that slip across the sand. The shimmer we call sparkle is the visible signature of water's geometry, its angles of bending light. This too is part of its magic. It turns energy into art. It paints with photons, composing glints that dance like laughter. The world's beauty, in so many ways, depends on how water scatters and gathers light. Without it, the sky would be pale and untextured, the sea a featureless black. With it, the world glows. The calmest truth of all is that water remembers how to return. No matter where it goes, whether bound in vapor or frozen as snow, it always finds its way home. There is patience in this, and something resembling faith. The drop that drifts from your breath into the night air may one day fall as rain halfway across the planet. The snowflake melting on a pine branch may, in time, rise again to the sky. Every molecule practices resurrection without hurry. In its endless transformation lies the assurance that nothing truly disappears. It only changes costume. So when you next pour a glass of water, pause for a moment before you drink. See it not as something simple, but as something ancient and wise, a messenger carrying the signatures of stars and stones. When it touches your lips, it becomes part of you, joining the ocean already within your veins. Let that awareness soothe you, the way a wave soothes the shore softly, rhythmically, without demand. For inside this one clear substance are all the traits we seek: gentleness, patience, generosity, and the quiet magic of balance. And in recognizing that, you may find that your own heart begins to move, as water does fluid, reflective, and always returning to calm. 5. The triple point whisper. In the language of science, there exists a phrase so quiet and elegant that it sounds more like poetry than measurement: the triple point. It is the name for a precise balance, a narrow moment in temperature and pressure, where water's three familiar faces, solid, liquid, and vapor, exist together, neither conquering nor retreating. Ice, liquid, and steam holding hands in perfect equilibrium. It is not a common sight. You could walk the earth for years and never witness it directly. Yet this tiny window of coexistence defines much of what we know about life and stability. It is the calm heart of thermodynamics, the still point of the world's most restless substance. Imagine a small sealed vessel, no larger than a cup, containing pure water under delicate control. The air inside holds just enough pressure to keep the vapor close, and the temperature is tuned to a single, subtle number, 0.01 degrees Celsius. Inside, ice crystals shimmer faintly at the surface, while droplets slide across them. And above, a wisp of vapor hovers, invisible but real. No single state dominates. They share the same space, exchanging molecules in a conversation too fine for the eye to follow. An atom leaves the lattice of ice, pauses as liquid, then rises into the gaseous air. Another returns the same way, descending through the stages like a quiet traveler. Each transition is a footstep in a circular path that never tires. To the human heart, this sounds like peace, the moment when opposites do not cancel but coexist. In a sense, the triple point is nature's demonstration of harmony, the literal equilibrium between stillness and motion, between condensation and evaporation, between freezing and flow. We are used to thinking of states as mutually exclusive. Something is either solid or liquid, frozen or melted. Yet water refuses this rigidity. It offers a small reminder that certainty is rarely real, that the world is more nuanced than we allow it to be. At the triple point, transformation becomes continuity. Boundaries soften. Change and constancy are the same things spoken in different accents. On a planetary scale, the existence of this balance is more than a curiosity. It is a miracle of design. The conditions that allow water to exist in all three states are exactly those that define the narrow envelope where life can thrive. If our world were warmer, the oceans might have boiled away. If colder, they might have been locked forever in ice. Instead, Earth spins in a sweet corridor of distance from the sun, where liquid water can wander freely, yet where snow and vapor remain close companions. We live, quite literally, in the realm of the triple point. Our atmosphere, our weather, our blood, all are balanced on this knife edge of coexistence. You can see echoes of this delicate trinity all around you. A mountain peak capped in ice breathes mist into the morning sky as meltwater runs from its side. In that single vista, solid, liquid, and gas exchange glances like old friends. A cold glass of water beads with droplets. Condensation curls down, while vapor rises upward. Even a single breath carries traces of the triple point warm air, meeting cool exhale, creating tiny clouds that fade as fast as thought. The world is always whispering that equilibrium is not stasis. It is motion arranged into grace. If you listen more deeply, you might sense how this principle threads through your own life. Inside you, too, there are shifting phases, moments that freeze into memory, moments that flow with clarity, moments that evaporate into dream. Each is a form of the same experience, cycling endlessly through states of awareness. We are, like water, transitional beings. We solidify when we need structure, melt when we need connection, rise when we need distance, and sometimes, briefly, we find our own triple point, a state of mind where stillness, movement, and reflection coexist in fragile balance. Meditation, perhaps, or the last quiet minutes before sleep, when thought, body, and breath line up so perfectly that you feel both anchored and weightless. In laboratories, scientists use the triple point of water as a standard, a precise calibration for thermometers, a fixed reference for the definition of temperature itself. It is, in effect, a physical truth that does not drift. Whenever measurements falter, researchers return to it as a kind of grounding note, the fundamental frequency of heat and matter. How fitting that the most reliable anchor in our system of precision arises from water's willingness to be many things at once. In its unity of opposites, it becomes a measure of constancy. This, too, carries a lesson for us. Stability need not come from rigidity, but from balance between forces that seem at odds. Imagine the triple point, not as a piece of equipment, but but as a small, natural event, perhaps inside a droplet of morning dew caught between sunlight and shadow. At its core, microscopic regions of ice and liquid might coexist, trading energy in tiny cycles. When you see a glint on that droplet, you are watching these exchanges unfold at the edge of visibility. The dew itself will not last long. As the air warms, it vanishes into vapor. But for a short time, it lives in perfect compromise. Nature's meditations often happen in miniature. This equilibrium extends beyond the laboratory and the leaf. It governs clouds as they hover at the threshold of rain. High in the sky, supercooled droplets and ice crystals mingle within a delicate temperature band. Some freeze, others melt. Some remain suspended. This subtle dance decides whether a cloud releases its water or keeps it close. The gentle balance that determines rain or clarity, storm or stillness, comes down to the same whisper-thin margin that defines the triple point. Every time a rain shower begins, the atmosphere has found that fragile harmony, held it for a moment, and then let it fall. Think of a snowflake forming in that realm between cold and less cold. Water vapor gathers on a dust mote, then crystallizes outward in hexagonal arms. The pattern depends on minute shifts of temperature and humidity. No two flakes follow the same blueprint. Yet each is a record of balance, of how the triple point's logic plays out in the sky. The frozen branches of the flake remember vapor. The empty spaces remember liquid. And the whole shape is an act of compromise written in ice. When you catch one on your glove and watch it melt, you are witnessing a brief reunion of phases, a memory dissolving back into motion. On the opposite side of the spectrum, think of a kettle beginning to boil. Bubbles form at the bottom, pockets of vapor surrounded by liquid, while above them steam swirls into the air. In that small domestic ritual, you are again looking at water moving through its boundaries, each phase speaking to the others in a language of energy. The sound of the simmering, that rising and falling hum, is the sound of equilibrium breaking and reforming 1,000 times each second. If you listen closely, even in that simple noise, there is comfort at the same reminder that change is a conversation, not a conflict. The triple point also invites us to think about time. It teaches that even fleeting balances matter. The universe, vast and cold, contains endless examples of extremes. Stars too hot for structure, space too empty for contact. But here, on this small planet, water has found a way to be all things and still be one thing. It has turned instability into rhythm, the heartbeat of rain, the stillness of ice, the whisper of mist, all are variations on this ancient agreement. Life emerged from it, clinging to the margin between frozen and boiling, learning to persist by adjusting, adapting, shifting without losing identity. And maybe, as you sit now, breathing slowly, you can sense that same subtle calibration at work in yourself. The warmth of your blood balanced against the cool air that meets your skin. The weight of your body sinking into stillness, while thoughts drift upward like vapor. Inside this quiet symmetry, you, too, approach your triple point, a harmony of being grounded and light, of holding and releasing, of resting and awakening. If water could speak, perhaps it would tell us that the secret of peace is not to choose one form, but to honor them all, to freeze when it is time for stillness, to flow when motion is needed, to rise when release is called for. Each state lends strength to the others, and the point where they meet, small, precise, fleeting, is where life feels whole. The triple point is not just a scientific constant. It is a metaphor for everything that endures through balance. Somewhere within its whisper lies a quiet truth, that the world, in its most peaceful moments, is not at rest, but in agreement. Ice, liquid, and vapor breathing together, each acknowledging the other's right to exist. It is the universe's softest compromise, a note of harmony hidden in the hum of physics. And if you listen carefully, beneath the pulse of your own body, you might hear it still, the slow exhale of equilibrium, the calm voice of water, reminding you that peace is not absence, but perfect presence. 6 colors of a living mirror. There is a moment at the edge of every day when the sea becomes a painter. The sky dims or brightens, and the ocean responds, not by copying but by conversing, by holding the world's light in its own way. The colors that move across the surface of water are not fixed things. They are collaborations between depth and distance, between sunlight and salt, between the way light bends and the way the eye receives it. Every shade we call blue is, in truth, a language of scattering and absorption, a physics written in radiance. Yet knowing the science does not remove the magic, it only deepens it. To understand how water finds its color is to glimpse how the world translates energy into beauty. When sunlight enters the sea, it begins a slow journey downward through layers of clarity. White light, though it looks simple, is a mixture of many colors, each traveling as a wave of its own length and mood. The shorter, quicker wavelengths, the blues and violets, slip deeper, weaving between molecules with ease. The longer waves, those of red and orange, are caught and swallowed first. With every meter of descent, a color is left behind. At 5 meters, crimson disappears. At 10, amber and gold fade. At 20, even green begins to dim. What remains is blue, stretched across the depths like an endless sigh. It is not the sea that is blue. It is what survives the journey that makes it appear so. The ocean wears the blue, color of endurance. Stand on a shore at noon, and you will see this endurance in motion. The shallows, lit by sand beneath, shimmer with turquoise, the color of light that has touched bottom and returned. Further out, where the floor drops away and light must travel longer, the hue deepens to sapphire, then to indigo. The horizon itself is a mirror too wide to name, shifting with each cloud that passes. The ocean reflects not only light but the temperament of the sky. Silver under overcast, rose under dawn, violet under storms. At night, when the moon spreads its pale hand across the surface, the color drains into ink, and yet even then, a sheen of blue lingers beneath the darkness, like memory under sleep. Water holds color the way glass holds breath delicately, with the potential to transform at the slightest change. A small shift in wind can ripple the surface and turn stillness into scattered gleam. Each wavelet becomes a lens, catching sky and sun in miniature. From far away, the sea looks calm. Up close, it is a field of moving mirrors, each reflecting the world in a slightly different angle. The result is what we call shimmer, that living mosaic of light that never repeats itself. Scientists explain it as reflection, refraction, and interference, words precise but incapable of describing the quiet awe it brings. The truth is simpler. The ocean is the world's great eye, and through it the planet watches its own changing face. The blue we see is not only light's trick, but life's contribution. Near the surface, tiny organisms called phytoplankton drift by the trillions, tinting the water green where they bloom. These microscopic beings are the breath of the sea. Through photosynthesis, they exhale the oxygen that feeds the air above. When they are plentiful, the ocean glows jade or aquamarine, the color of vitality itself. When they thin, the blue deepens again, vast and solitary. Sometimes their pigments mix with minerals washed from rivers, iron, giving a reddish hue. Limestone, a milkier turquoise. Thus, color becomes geography, a map written in tones instead of borders. The Caribbean's bright clarity, the Mediterranean's cobalt, the North Atlantic's dark velvet, all are expressions of place and life intertwined. In shallow lagoons, where sunlight can reach the bottom unhindered, water becomes a prism for sand. Every grain beneath contributes to the shade. Above, white sands reflect brilliance. Coral dust adds blush. Volcanic basalts lend smoke. Here, the sea seems to glow from within. Not illuminated, but self-luminous, as if remembering the star that warms it. This luminescence is the closest thing Earth has to a sigh of contentment. Light, resting in liquid form. If you walk into such water, you become part of the reflection. Your skin painted by the sky's blue and the sun's gold. Your outline rippling like the edge of a dream. Deeper down, color behaves differently. Divers describe the descent as moving through time. At a few meters, reds vanish first, and the world turns cooler, quieter. At 15 meters, oranges and yellows fade. The living corals that seemed aflame above now glow with ghostly pallor. At 30 meters, only blues remain. A monochrome cathedral where sound carries longer and light softens to velvet. There, in the deep's dim heart, even shadows dissolve into blue. It is not emptiness but fullness, a saturation so complete that it feels like immersion in thought. To be surrounded by that color is to feel boundaries blur, the self blending into hue, into hush. The physics behind this serenity is called Rayleigh scattering, the same principle that makes the sky blue. In air, molecules scatter the short blue wavelengths more than the long red ones, painting the heavens above. In water, the process deepens. Light travels farther before scattering, and each molecule, denser than air, bends the wavefront slightly, diffusing color into depth. The effect is not a simple reflection of the sky, but a collaboration between atmosphere and ocean, each contributing its share of blue to the global palette. Together they create what astronauts call the blue marble, a sphere glowing with calm in the dark. At the smallest scale, water's molecules refract light because of their shape and movement. They bend it inward, then let it out again, softened, like a whisper repeated through many voices. At sunset, when the angle of sunlight lowers, these same molecules become gentler mirrors. Reds and oranges, usually lost to absorption, now find a shorter path along the surface, painting the waves in fire. The sea at dusk burns without heat, glowing with every color it had hidden throughout the day. When night finally claims it, the ocean cools into grayscale, yet beneath that quiet, plankton begin to shine, releasing faint bioluminescence, cold light born from living chemistry. The ocean never goes completely dark. It simply trades one kind of radiance for another. Think of the first people to see these changes and wonder. To them, the ocean's colors must have seemed divine, an emotion made visible. They named them after spirits, after moods, cerulean, ultramarine, the color beyond the sea. Artists later ground minerals into powders to capture that same feeling, using lapis and azurite to paint skies and robes, to bring fragments of ocean into temples and palaces. Even now, when we name something sea blue, we are trying to borrow the calm of depth, the serenity of distance. The human heart recognizes in water's color a mirror of its own longing for peace. There is a secret in this reflection. Color is never static. The same patch of ocean is never the same shade twice. Time of day, angle of light, weather, season, depth, all conspire to change its tone. This mutability is not restlessness, but resilience. The sea's beauty lies in its ability to adapt, to remain itself through endless transformation. In that way, it resembles the mind at rest. Thoughts may come and go, moods may shift, but the underlying clarity remains. The water may appear gray under storm, yet once the clouds pass, the blue returns. Calm is not the absence of change, but the trust that light will always find its way back. To watch the ocean's colors is to watch the world breathing. Each wave that catches the sun flashes for an instant and is gone, replaced by another. Each glimmer is a heartbeat, each reflection a thought dissolving into the next. The sea is not a single mirror but millions of moving ones, all remembering and forgetting the sky at once. Standing there, you realize that light is never lost. It is simply carried elsewhere, refracted into unseen directions, stored in memory, in salt, in the eyes that look upon it. When you gaze upon the horizon, where sea meets air in a blur of pale silver blue, you are looking at a threshold. Beyond that line, color continues into depths you cannot see. Beneath it, creatures move in hues invisible to us, glowing or shadowed, alive in their own spectra. Above it, clouds drift and scatter sunlight into the palette that sustains your eyes. Between the two, you stand one more reflective surface, one more witness in the grand exchange of light. And when dusk finally arrives and the water darkens until it becomes almost indistinguishable from the sky, you might close your eyes and feel that vast, cooling blue settle inside you. It is not simply color anymore, but temperature, texture, emotion. The sea has always known how to translate physics into feeling. The colors of water are the colors of calm itself, a living mirror that holds both day and night, reflection and depth, and teaches, without words, that beauty is just balance written in light. 7 thermohaline conveyor. Far beneath the ocean's surface, past the reach of sunlight and storm, there moves a current so slow, so steady, that it seems more like thought than water. It is called the thermohaline circulation, the great conveyor of the seas, a planetary bloodstream carrying warmth and salt and memory from one end of the world to another. It does not rush, it does not roar, it moves with the patience of centuries, a silent pulse beneath the louder rhythms of waves and tides. And yet this hidden circulation shapes the climate, nourishes the deep, and keeps the Earth's balance alive. To know it is to understand that even the quietest motions can sustain everything. Imagine beginning at the surface of the North Atlantic, where cold air blows across open water. Here, the ocean gives up its heat to the sky, and as it cools, its water grows denser. Evaporation leaves behind salt, which further increases that density. Gradually, invisibly, this heavy water begins to sink, folding downward through the layers beneath it like silk sliding through silk. It drifts toward the sea floor and starts to travel southward, a vast, slow river beneath the ocean itself. Scientists call it the deep current, and its speed is unthinkably gentle, perhaps a few centimeters per second, but its persistence makes it one of the great engines of the planet. It is water falling endlessly through water, gravity's lullaby sung in a key so low that only time can hear it. This descent in the far north is only half of the story. Elsewhere, near the equator and along tropical coasts, warm surface waters are drawn poleward, pulled into place to replace what has sunk. The global system is like a breath, cold water sinking, warm water rising, a circulation of temperature that spans hemispheres. Warm currents flow northward, the Gulf Stream in the Atlantic, the Kuroshio in the Pacific, bringing mild winters to distant lands. Without them, Europe would freeze beneath its latitude, and monsoons would falter over Asia. Every breeze that touches your face, every rainfall that softens the soil, owes something to this vast exchange between the equator and the poles. If you could follow one droplet through its journey along this conveyor, you would live many lifetimes before it returned to its beginning. A molecule of water sinking near Greenland might drift for 1,000 years before rising again in the Indian Ocean or the Pacific. Along the way, it would pass beneath continents, through trenches, over mountains of basalt, hidden in blackness. It would feel the slow pressure of the abyss and absorb the stories of the world, traces of nutrients, whispers of carbon, echoes of ancient sunlight stored in sinking plankton. Every drop is a traveler and a storyteller, carrying with it the memory of where it has been. The deep ocean is a library written in liquid, and each current a page turning at the speed of patience. The engine that drives all of this is simple and elegant. Differences in temperature and salinity, two quiet measures of energy and composition. Warm water is light, cold water is heavy, salty water sinks, fresh water floats. These small variations, multiplied across millions of square kilometers, set the ocean in motion like gears in a clock. Yet unlike any machine, this clock runs on grace. It requires no start, no stop, no external push. It moves because the planet spins and the sun warms unevenly, and because water, in its responsiveness, always seeks balance. Thermohaline means heat and salt, but what it truly describes is relationship, how contrasts create harmony, how imbalance itself becomes movement toward equilibrium. You can imagine this current as a vast ribbon looping through the world's oceans, down through the North Atlantic, around the tip of Africa, across the Indian and Pacific Oceans, then back toward the surface near Antarctica, where cold winds strip warmth once more. It is a circuit, a slow heartbeat connecting all seas. Even isolated bays and marginal seas feel its influence through subtle exchanges of water, mass, and nutrient. The great gyres at the surface, the rotating systems of currents, driven by wind, are like ripples above the deeper stream, their motion faster but dependent on the same underlying rhythm. In the depths, where sunlight never reaches, this circulation becomes the only source of renewal. When organic matter sinks from the surface, dead plankton, the remains of jellyfish, the dust of life, it settles into the dark. Without the conveyor, those nutrients would remain trapped there, and the upper ocean would starve. But the slow mixing of waters lifts these traces upward again, returning them to the light where photosynthesis can begin anew. The ocean feeds itself through its own breath. Every bloom of plankton, every fish that feeds upon it, is part of this same continuum. Life falling, life rising, life repeating itself through the tides of centuries. From above, the sea seems still, but satellites now reveal its intricate veins. Warm currents appear as glowing ribbons, cold upwellings as shadows. In these temperature maps, you can see the ocean's circulatory system in motion, connecting polar chill with equatorial fire. The sight is oddly human, resembling the arteries of a living being. The Earth, in this sense, is alive not in metaphor but in mechanism. Its waters flow like blood, its winds act as breath, and its continents are bones against which the fluid moves. The thermohaline conveyor is its pulse, slow and immense, too steady to be felt directly, yet present in every wave that touches the shore. Climate, too, listens to this heartbeat. When the deep current shifts, so do the winds, the rains, and the patterns of heat that define our seasons. Scientists study ancient sediments and ice cores and find in them records of when the conveyor sped up or slowed, when warmth lingered or fled. There have been times in history when great floods of fresh water disrupted the balance, halting the sinking of cold, salty water in the north. When that happened, the planet's climate wavered. Winters grew long, summers brief. The brief ocean's patience is vast, but it is not indifferent. A small change in salinity or temperature can whisper across centuries, altering the future with the soft authority of water. Still, there is reassurance in its endurance. Long after empires fade and names are forgotten, the deep current will continue its path, weaving continents together through invisible threads. Even now, as surface waters warm and ice melts faster, the ocean continues to adjust, seeking new balance. The system that began before humans ever named the seas will go on, because the physics of its motion is simple and kind. Heavy sinks, light rises, and the world turns. It is the planet's reminder that the basic laws of balance are self-healing, if given time. You can sense this rhythm even standing on a beach, if you listen with more than ears. The breeze that smells faintly of salt and faraway rain is part of it. The warmth of a current brushing against your legs in summer, coming from oceans thousands of miles away, is part of it too. These sensations are the surface echoes of something enormous and unseen beneath you. A pulse that connects the Arctic to the tropics to the poles, and you to all of it. The very air you breathe has traveled along this invisible path, carried by waters that have risen and fallen countless times. If you imagine the planet's heartbeat, it is not fast like a drum, but slow, tidal, deliberate. Each complete circuit of the thermohaline current takes roughly 1,000 years, yet every moment is part of it. When you drop a pebble into the sea, the ripples you create become part of that ancient rhythm. They fade at the surface but continue downward, merging with deeper layers. Their energy absorbed, translated, and carried onward. Nothing is lost in the ocean, only transformed, only folded into movement too vast for immediate perception. And perhaps this is what the ocean teaches best through its deep conveyor, that constancy does not mean stillness, that even the slowest motion sustains life. Beneath the surface of our days, unseen processes keep us balanced. We breathe without thought, our blood circulates, our minds drift from thought to thought, all in rhythms older than intention. In that sense, we are miniature reflections of the sea, small thermohaline worlds, carrying heat and salt within our bodies, balancing what rises and what falls. So tonight, as you breathe in, imagine drawing warmth from the equator of your being. As you exhale, let that breath sink like cold water toward calm. You are the ocean's echo, shaped by the same quiet physics, participating in the same exchange. Somewhere far below the waves, the deep current continues its endless journey, carrying the memory of light into darkness and returning nourishment from dark to light. It is the slow pulse of Earth itself, the steady heart that never stops, whispering through salt and silence, that balance, in all its forms, is a kind of love. 8. Sound beneath the surface. If you were to slip quietly into the sea, to sink until the sunlight fractured into faint ribbons, and the surface became only a distant shimmer above, the first thing you would notice is not darkness, but sound. The ocean, contrary to what we imagine, is never silent. It hums and sighs, clicks and drones, a resonant chamber vast enough to cradle the echoes of the world. Down here, where light travels poorly and sight grows dim, sound becomes the language of distance, the map by which creatures know their world. Every droplet is an instrument, every current a slow vibration. The sea speaks constantly. You need only adjust your hearing to the right kind of quiet to notice it. Water carries sound far more faithfully than air. Because its molecules are close together, vibrations pass swiftly, almost 4 times faster than they do above the surface. A single pulse can travel hundreds of kilometers, bending with temperature and pressure, guided along invisible pathways where speed and density form natural corridors. These channels act as acoustic highways, allowing voices to cross entire oceans. In certain layers, called sound fixing and ranging zones, or simply the SOFAR channel, sound can travel for thousands of miles with little loss. Imagine a single note struck by a whale in the dark Antarctic waters, reaching the ears of another across the equator. The sea is an orchestra without walls, a place where distance does not always mean separation. At the surface, waves murmur with a texture familiar to human ears. Foam bursts in miniature percussions, bubbles rise and pop in a fine crackling, and the gentle tumble of pebbles at the shoreline adds a rhythmic undercurrent. Together, These small sounds form what scientists call the sea's surface noise, a constant whisper produced by the meeting of air and water. Yet deeper down, the character changes. The high notes fall away, replaced by a low, encompassing hum that seems to come from everywhere at once. It is the voice of the ocean itself, the combined vibration of currents, storms, and distant surf, woven into one continuous tone. Whales have learned to inhabit this vast medium of resonance with astonishing grace. The low calls of blue whales can last for hours, their frequencies so deep they border on the edge of human hearing. These songs pass through the water as undulations, more felt than heard, rolling like slow thunder along the ocean floor. A single call can be detected halfway around the world. Humpback whales, in turn, layer their voices into complex sequences that shift over seasons, as if composing symphonies whose movements change with migration. Each pattern of sound has a purpose: to find mates, to navigate, to keep the pod connected across miles of distance. In the realm of sound, there are no walls, no barriers, only endless continuity. Not only the giants speak here, tiny shrimps snap their claws with such speed that they produce bursts of noise, forming a crackling chorus across coral reefs. Fish croak, drum, or hum by vibrating their swim bladders. Some release rhythmic pulses that mark territory or attract partners. To dive near a reef is to enter a city alive with conversation. The clatter of shrimp, the gentle bass of distant whales, the hiss of sand shifting beneath currents, it all layers into a soundscape as complex as any rainforest. Each frequency has its place, each voice its range. Life here organizes itself by listening. Even the earth itself joins the dialogue. Waves crashing upon continental shelves send vibrations deep into the crust, where they resonate like a slow heartbeat. These tremors, too faint to notice directly, are measured by instruments as microseisms, subtle quakes caused not by tectonics but by the constant percussion of the sea. The ocean, restless and rhythmic, writes its motion into the planet's very structure. Scientists who study these vibrations can hear storms forming thousands of miles away, their energy carried through water and rock. It is as though the world keeps a diary in sound, every page filled with invisible music. Human ears, above the surface, are accustomed to the air's limitations. We rely on sight more than hearing, because our atmosphere muffles the distant. But in the sea, vision narrows, and the ear becomes primary. Divers speak of an uncanny feeling when they descend, the sensation of being inside sound rather than surrounded by it. The water presses gently against the eardrums, and noise comes not from one direction but from all. A boat passing miles away sounds near, its propeller a faint ticking. The groan of ice carving from a glacier carries through the cold like a low chant. Even your own heartbeat, magnified by conduction through bone and tissue, becomes a drum inside your ribs. Down here, to listen is to feel. Sound is the lifeline of the ocean's navigation. Many animals use echolocation, sending out short clicks that bounce from objects, return with messages about distance and shape. Dolphins are masters of this art. A single burst of sound from them contains enough detail to build a mental image of their surroundings. Fish, coral, even the outline of other dolphins. It is vision translated into echo, light rewritten as vibration. Through it, they find food, recognize friends, and map the contours of their invisible world. Humans once thought of sound as secondary, but the sea reminds us that for many, it is everything. There is something profoundly meditative about knowing that every part of the ocean participates in this symphony. Raindrops striking the surface add brief high notes. The distant rumble of a storm merges into bass. Icebergs crack with echoes that travel through entire basins. Even silence, when it appears, is only a pause between phrases, a breath taken by the sea. To listen deeply is to realize that water itself is an instrument tuned to balance. The same principles that allow it to carry sound so clearly, its density, its fluidity, its continuity, are also the reasons it can cradle life so gently. The ocean does not resist vibration. It welcomes it, passes it along, shares it. And yet, the sea's voice has changed in recent times. Ships, sonar, and machinery have added layers of mechanical noise to the ancient harmony. Whales sometimes fall silent, their calls lost amid the human-made hum. Scientists now measure ocean noise pollution, noting how it masks communication and disorients migration. In this way, we are reminded that sound is not only beauty, but responsibility. The ocean's hearing is old and sensitive. It has evolved over millions of years to respond to nuance, not volume. To restore quiet here is to restore clarity, both to the sea and to ourselves. Still, there are places where the old music remains untouched. In the deep mid-ocean, far from shipping lanes, the water hums as it always has. The sounds are ancient currents brushing against ridges, bubbles rising from volcanic vents, faint murmurs of rain above. Listening to recordings made there, one hears what might be described as the planet's heartbeat. It is not constant. It varies with season and tide, with storm and calm. But it persists, a slow oscillation beneath all the noise we make. The earth, it seems, is always singing to itself through water. If you could translate these vibrations into light, the ocean would glow with shifting bands of color, low tones as deep indigo, higher notes as gold. Every movement would be luminous. But instead, the sea keeps its symphony invisible, shared only with those who care to listen. Perhaps this is its way of teaching patience. Sound underwater does not hurry. It arrives when it must, bends around obstacles, finds its listener no matter how far away. There is faith in that. To speak in the ocean is to trust that you will be heard eventually, even across great distances. So imagine yourself now, floating weightless, your ears open, your breathing slow. Around you, the water hums with stories older than language. You can hear the pulse of your own body joining the chorus, a small percussion within the grand design. Above, the surface crackles faintly. Below, the deep murmurs in endless chords. You do not need to understand it. Simply knowing that the sea carries voices of wind, of creature, of continent is enough. Somewhere in that immense resonance lies the rhythm of your own calm. Let it settle through you like sound through salt water. Steady, low, continuous. The ocean's song will keep playing long after you stop listening. But for now, for this moment, you are part of its music, a note within the eternal sound beneath the surface. 9 bioluminescent night. There are nights when the ocean begins to glow, not with the reflected shimmer of moonlight or the glitter of far-off cities, but with a light of its own, a living, breathing radiance that seems to rise from the water's soul. The waves become ribbons of soft fire. Each motion of the tide ignites a spark. Each footprint in wet sand releases a faint blue shimmer that dies as quickly as it appears. In these moments, the boundary between sea and sky dissolves into a luminous hush, and the dark world reveals its hidden stars. It is one of nature's most serene illusions, yet it is not illusion at all. It is chemistry and life, patiently practiced for millions of years, written in the language of quiet light. The creatures responsible for this sea of glow are small, tiny plankton drifting near the surface, most no larger than a grain of dust. Each carries within it a simple mechanism, a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. When these two meet in the presence of oxygen, a reaction takes place, releasing a photon, a brief spark of blue-green light. It is such a modest exchange, invisible when seen alone. But when countless plankton move together, stirred by current or wave or the brush of a swimmer's hand, the sea answers in brilliant collective response. Every disturbance becomes a brushstroke, every motion a glowing signature that fades into darkness like a sigh. Blue is the favored color of the ocean's light because it travels farthest through water. Red and yellow fade quickly, absorbed after only a few meters, but blue can reach into the depths. This is why the bioluminescent glow feels otherworldly, like something dreamt rather than observed. It is a hue that belongs entirely to the sea, unseen by day, awakened by night. Sailors once told stories of milky seas, vast tracts of glowing ocean visible from miles away, where the surface shone continuously, as if the stars had fallen and melted there. For centuries, these tales were treated as legend, until satellites captured the faint radiance from orbit, confirming that entire regions of the ocean can indeed glow for hours, sometimes for nights on end. Millions of trillions of microorganisms, each a tiny lantern, drifting together in calm alignment. To witness this from the shore is to feel time pause. The dark surf rolls forward, and with each collapse of wave, the foam bursts into light, a luminous exhalation. The glow is not bright enough to cast shadows, yet it is bright enough to erase fear. Even the darkness of night becomes gentle when the water itself begins to shine. Walk along the sand, and your steps leave trails of pale blue fire. Dip your hand into the shallows and watch droplets fall from your fingers like sparks falling from a slow blue flame. The light clings for a heartbeat, then fades, proof that beauty does not need permanence to be complete. The origins of bioluminescence stretch back deep into evolutionary time, long before eyes had learned to see. It began as a chemical accident, a side effect of metabolism that happened to release light instead of heat. But over millennia, the light became language. In the deep ocean, where sunlight never reaches, living creatures learned to use bioluminescence as communication, camouflage, and lure. Some fish carry lanterns beneath their eyes to startle predators or attract prey. Others flash in intricate patterns, signaling to potential mates or confusing enemies. A jellyfish, drifting like a ghost, may pulse with light when disturbed, a silent warning or a plea for invisibility through distraction. To light up is to exist in darkness without fear. At the surface, dinoflagellates, the tiny plankton that make beaches glow, use their luminescence as a shield. When a fish or other predator disturbs them, they flash in defense, startling the intruder and drawing attention from larger hunters nearby. It is as if they cry out in light instead of sound. The night, in turn, becomes a vast conversation of illumination. Plankton answering the fish answering the current answering the moon. From a distance, it looks like poetry written in motion, the ocean composing its verses in blue. Divers who descend into bioluminescent waters speak of experiences that border on the mystical. They describe turning off their lights and waving their arms through the dark to find themselves surrounded by glittering particles, a galaxy of living stars swirling with every movement. The body becomes a constellation, the diver's breath, a trail of brilliance rising upward. When stillness returns, the glow fades, as if the ocean were waiting patiently for another gesture. It is not performance but reciprocity, light given in response to touch, as though the sea were alive to every caress. Even in the deepest abyss, where no sunlight has ever fallen, life finds ways to shine. Down there, the glow is constant but faint, a quiet starlight of its own. Anglerfish dangle luminescent lures before their mouths, enticing prey toward the promise of false illumination. Shrimp release glowing clouds to mask their retreat. Some squid use light as camouflage, adjusting their brightness to match the weak glow filtering from above, rendering themselves invisible against the faint surface shimmer. In these regions, light is not decoration, it is survival. Every pulse, every flicker, is a negotiation with the dark. The chemistry of this light is astonishingly efficient. Unlike a flame, which wastes most of its energy as heat, bioluminescence converts nearly all of its chemical energy directly into visible light. There is no smoke, no warmth, only radiance. In this way, the glow of the sea is purer than any fire we can make, untouched by waste or noise. It is energy's most graceful expression, an economy of beauty. Scientists studying these reactions have borrowed their secrets, using luciferin and luciferase to illuminate cells under microscopes, to track processes invisible to the eye. The sea's quiet magic has become a tool for human understanding, light serving science as it once served survival. But for all our explanations, the emotional truth remains untouched. Stand at the edge of a glowing shore is to feel the earth itself, breathing softly in color. There is an intimacy in the experience that defies language, the sense that you are both outside of time and deeply within it, part of a moment that has repeated for ages and yet feels meant for you alone. The bioluminescent tide doesn't compete with the stars above, it completes them. Sky and sea, both filled with tiny lights, mirror each other until you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. The horizon disappears into radiance, and for a brief interval, the world is whole. The light lasts only as long as movement does. When the sea stills, it returns to darkness, resting from its small labor of wonder. And yet, something of it lingers in memory. Long after the glow fades, you can close your eyes and see the afterimage, a faint blue shimmer behind your eyelids, like the ghost of a dream. You might find that your thoughts slow when you recall it, that breathing becomes easier, that calm returns. This is the true gift of the bioluminescent night. It teaches you that illumination need not be constant to be comforting. A single flash, seen once, can light the mind for years. If you imagine drifting at sea on such a night, the waves carrying you like a cradle, every swell beneath you a soft, glowing breath, you will understand what the ocean has been saying all along. In its darkest hours, it still finds ways to shine. Each drop of water, each humble plankton, becomes a lantern of endurance. The sea, vast and shadowed, reveals its gentlest truth, that darkness is not absence, but backdrop, that even in the deepest night, light is possible. And perhaps, as you fall asleep, you can hold that image close, a horizon erased by radiance, the sound of quiet waves burning with living blue, and the endless patience of an ocean that carries its stars within. 10 coral gardens at dawn. When the first light of morning reaches the sea, it does not arrive in silence. It descends in slow ripples, sinking through shallows where the water begins to warm, where colors wake from the blue sleep of night. Down below, hidden from those who stand on the shore, the ocean floor transforms into a city made not of stone or metal, but of life itself, a sprawling metropolis built by the smallest of hands. These are the coral reefs, the world's quiet architects, whose patience has shaped landscapes so intricate and delicate that even time must move carefully through them. To drift above a reef at dawn is to witness creation in progress, a place where stone breathes, where color becomes language, and where stillness hums with invisible activity. Coral is not a plant, as it might seem from its branching shapes and flower-like forms. It is a colony of countless tiny animals called polyps, each no larger than a pinhead. Together they build skeletons of calcium carbonate, leaving behind white frameworks that resemble lace turned to stone. Layer upon layer, generation upon generation, they extend their walls outward and upward, transforming open sea into cathedral. What appears to be rock is, in truth, the memory of lives stacked one atop another, fragile yet enduring. The coral reef is an archive written in mineral and breath, a library whose pages are shells, whose paragraphs are currents, whose punctuation is the darting motion of fish. As dawn filters through the water, the first creatures to wake are those who work by light. The coral polyps, nocturnal by habit, begin to withdraw into their limestone homes, their translucent bodies curling into the safety of tiny cups. All night they have been feeding, stretching out tentacles tipped with stinging cells to capture drifting plankton. Now they rest, and their partners take over. Within each polyp lives an alga, a microscopic guest known as zooxanthella. These algae are the quiet gardeners of the reef. They absorb sunlight, turn it into sugar, and share their bounty with the coral that shelters. To them, it is a partnership so precise that neither can live long without the other. Light becomes food, food becomes structure, and structure becomes the foundation of an ecosystem that shelters nearly a quarter of all marine life. The colors that dazzle the eye when sunlight floods a reef come from this collaboration. The algae lend golden, green, and brown hues, while the coral's own tissues refract light into pinks and purples, blues and creams. Seen together, they form an underwater mosaic that seems painted by the sea itself. In the shallows, where the sun is strongest, these colors shimmer and shift with every passing cloud. The water moves, and the reef answers, turning its palette like the facets of a living gem. To watch it is to understand that beauty in nature is rarely static. It is a dance of constant renewal, a conversation between light and life. Fish appear next, moving through the coral corridors, like early commuters through quiet streets. Schools of parrotfish glide by, nibbling algae from the coral's surface with beak-like mouths, keeping the structure clean. Their feeding produces fine sand, the very substance that becomes beaches over centuries. Small damselfish hover near their favorite coral heads, defending territories no wider than a dinner plate. Clownfish dart among the protective tentacles of anemones, their orange bodies pulsing like tiny flames in the clear water. Every niche, every crevice, holds a purpose and a resident. Even the shadows are inhabited. Moray eels slide through their caves, and octopuses camouflage themselves as lumps of rock, dreaming in colors we cannot name. As the light strengthens, the reef becomes busier. Crabs scuttle, sea cucumbers sift the sand, rays drift low across the floor, stirring thin veils of sediment that sparkle in the light. Above, a turtle glides with solemn ease, its shell glinting green and gold. It pauses to nibble at a patch of sponges, then rises again to the surface for air. Everything moves at a rhythm measured not by haste, but by continuity. The reef's clock runs on balance, not speed. Every feeding, every cleaning, every pulse of current contributes to a harmony that has taken millions of years to compose. Coral reefs are often called the rainforests of the sea, but that comparison does not quite capture their temperament. The rainforest hums with urgency, with growth competing for light. The reef, by contrast, hums with patience. Its abundance comes not from haste, but from repetition. Each coral polyp builds slowly, laying down limestone at the pace of a few millimeters per year, yet multiplied by countless millions. This slowness becomes architecture vast enough to be seen from space. The Great Barrier Reef, stretching for over 2,000 kilometers along Australia's coast, is the largest living structure on Earth, a single organism composed of thousands of smaller ones, a slow explosion of persistence. If you linger in this underwater dawn, you will notice how sound returns. Softly at first, the clicking of shrimp, the faint drumming of fish, the popping of bubbles escaping from coral crevices. The reef is never silent. Its music is simply too fine for most ears above the surface. To scientists who have recorded it, the reef's acoustic landscape resembles a forest filled with birds, a complex web of frequencies that helps young fish navigate home after drifting as larvae in the open ocean. They are guided not by sight but by sound, by the chorus of the place they were born. The reef sings them back to itself, and yet this glowing city is also fragile. When the water grows too warm, the coral's delicate partnership with its algae begins to fail. The polyps, stressed by heat, expel their microscopic guests, and the reef loses its color, turning ghostly white. This bleaching does not mean immediate death, but it signals distress. If cooler waters return, the algae may come back, and the color will return as well. If not, the reef falls silent, its gardens fading to chalk. To see a bleached reef is to witness heartbreak on a planetary scale, a loss not only of beauty, but of an ancient collaboration between light and life. Still, even in decline, coral carries hope. Fragments can grow again, and restoration efforts across the world are teaching reefs to heal themselves, seed by seed, branch by branch. There is a tenderness in this resilience. Coral reminds us that creation and destruction are intertwined, that fragility does not preclude endurance. The same forces that threaten it, currents, storms, heat, are also those that once built it. The reef exists not despite the sea's restlessness, but because of it. Its foundations are carved by waves, its nutrients delivered by tides. In this way, the coral reef is a portrait of balance, an art of surviving by participation rather than resistance. As morning continues, sunlight sharpens into clarity. The surface above gleams like liquid glass, and shafts. Light falls straight through the water, illuminating the reef's towers and canyons. The fish shimmer brighter now. The coral seems to blush. Even the shadows glow faintly blue, like memory caught in motion. If you rise to the surface and look down, you see a world that seems impossibly serene, untouched by the noise of land. Yet beneath that, calm lies an unending labor of cooperation. Millions of lives, exchanging energy, shaping calcium, keeping time with the breath of the tides. To float above this scene is to feel humility, a soft awareness of how small and temporary our own structures are compared to the coral's patient art. We build quickly and call it progress. Coral builds slowly and calls it home. Its strength lies not in speed or power, but in constancy, in the quiet repetition of small acts done well. When you leave the water, the image lingers, the pink and green labyrinths, the flicker of fish between shadows, the sense of life so complete that it needs no witness. And, as the day brightens fully, the reef continues its silent work. The polyps sleep, the algae sing with light, the fish move in shimmering schools through corridors of color. Above them, the waves break softly, scattering rainbows across the surface. From a distance, it looks like a simple stretch of blue ocean. But below, the coral gardens remain a living mosaic, tender and tireless, painting the sea floor with the patience of dawn. Here, in the rhythm of construction and rest, the ocean dreams of permanence, and life learns again that beauty, when tended quietly, can outlast time itself. 11 kelp forest drift. There are places in the ocean where the sunlight lingers, filtered into long, wavering columns that sway like curtains of gold. These are the kelp forests, vast floating cathedrals that rise from the seafloor toward the surface, their fronds reaching upward as if in prayer. To drift among them is to step into another world. Neither holy land nor sea, but something. Between a twilight realm where time slows and the boundary between movement and stillness begins to blur. Everything here sways to the same rhythm, a patient choreography directed by the tides. The water moves, and the kelp moves with it, each frond bending without breaking, each motion an act of effortless grace. Kelp is not a plant in the ordinary sense, but a form of seaweed, a brown alga that thrives where cold, nutrient-rich waters well up from the depths. From tiny spores it grows into stalks that can reach 60 meters or more, each anchored to the rocky seabed by a structure called a holdfast. These holdfasts cling like hands to stone, gripping tightly while the rest of the organism stretches upward through the dim water. Along its central stem grow long blades, each buoyed by small gas-filled bulbs called pneumatocysts that lift the kelp toward the light. Together, thousands of these stalks form an underwater forest so dense that sunlight filters through in shifting green rays, as if the ocean itself were breathing in slow, luminous sighs. The rhythm of life here follows the movement of the water. Waves pass overhead, and the forest bends in unison, bowing toward the horizon, then returning upright as the surge withdraws. Fish weave between the blades like birds gliding between trees. Crabs crawl along the holdfasts, hiding in the labyrinth of roots. Sea otters float on the surface above, using the kelp's long strands to anchor themselves while they sleep, wrapping the fronds around their bodies like blankets. Below them, sea urchins graze at the base of the forest, nibbling at the holdfasts, testing the strength of the anchor that keeps the canopy alive. It is an ecosystem built on balance, every creature both dependent and necessary, every gesture a thread in a greater weaving. At dawn, when the sea is calm, the light slants through the kelp in shafts that quiver with motion. Tiny particles drift in these columns, catching the sun like dust in an old cathedral. You might imagine yourself suspended in liquid air, weightless and patient, moving only as the current decides. The sound is muted here, soft clicks of shrimp, the distant drumming of waves above, and the slow, rhythmic brushing of frond against frond. The ocean's deeper noises are hushed by the density of life, transformed into a low hum that feels more like vibration than sound. To enter such a forest is to feel your pulse sync with the water's pace, to breathe as the sea breathes, to forget where your body ends and the current begins. Everywhere you look, color moves slowly. The kelp blades are olive and amber, dark near the base and translucent at the edges. When light passes through them, they glow like stained glass. Small fish shimmer in silver schools, scattering flashes of light that resemble sunlight on rippling leaves. A curious sea lion might appear for a moment, spiraling through the columns like a gust of wind, then vanish into shadow. The longer you stay, the more the forest reveals its order. Nothing here is random. Each organism has found its place within the rhythm of tide and light. The kelp itself grows fastest when the water is cool and rich with nutrients, reaching upward sometimes half a meter a day in spring. When storms arrive, it bends rather than resists, its flexibility saving it from destruction. In this way, it teaches endurance through softness. The kelp forest is a breathing machine for the planet. Through photosynthesis, its blades capture sunlight and carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen back into the water and the atmosphere above. A single large kelp bed can produce enough oxygen to support thousands of species. When storms tear fronds from their stems, those fragments drift away, becoming food for deep-sea creatures or settling to form underwater meadows that nourish entire communities. Even in decay, kelp gives back. It feeds, it shelters, it becomes. Every phase of its life contributes to the calm productivity of the sea. Otters, those small and clever caretakers, play an essential role in maintaining this balance. They feed on sea urchins, keeping their populations in check. Without otters, the urchins would multiply uncontrollably, grazing the kelp to stumps, leaving behind what scientists call urchin barrens, empty expanses of rock where once the forest swayed. But where otters thrive, the kelp thrives too, and the whole ecosystem hums with abundance. It is a delicate partnership, as if the otters are the gardeners of the sea, tending the forest not with intention, but through the simplicity of hunger. Their presence is a form of caretaking, written into the design of nature itself. To float through such a forest is to experience both serenity and awe. Above, the sunlight wavers broken by the kelp canopy. Below, the dim green world stretches into mystery. It is easy to lose your sense of direction. Up and down dissolve, replaced by the feeling of being inside a slow-moving dream. Every detail seems deliberate. The gentle swaying of the fronds, the way bubbles rise along the stems, the flickering shadows on the ocean floor. Even the movement of your breath feels like part of the larger pattern. You inhale, and the forest rises with you. You exhale, and it sinks. The sea teaches that peace is not stillness but rhythm. There are moments when the forest feels almost human, as if it has moods. In calm weather, it stands upright, tall and composed, blades gliding lazily in the current. During storms, it writhes with energy, its canopy whipped into foaming lines at the surface. Yet even in chaos, it endures. The same flexibility that allows it to drift gracefully in gentler waters now saves it from tearing. Kelp does not resist the wave, it yields to it. When the storm passes, the forest straightens again, unbroken, unbowed. It is a masterclass in survival through surrender. Beneath the calm exterior, change is constant. New fronds grow while old ones decay, creating a cycle of renewal that mirrors the breathing of the tide. Small snails graze upon the algae that grow on kelp blades, and fish feed on the snails. Larger predators follow, weaving through the columns with patience and precision. Even the light changes throughout the day, morning's gold giving way to the cooler blues of afternoon, then the deep emerald of dusk. The forest never looks the same twice, though its spirit remains unchanged. At night, the forest transforms again. The sun departs, and with it, the bright fish retreat to shelter. In their place come the hunters of darkness, sharks and squid, rays and seals. The kelp sways still, a silent witness to these nocturnal exchanges. Bioluminescent plankton drift between the blades, glowing faintly as they pass, turning the forest into a constellation of moving stars. Even in the absence of light, the kelp keeps its rhythm. It does not sleep as we do. It rests within movement, always in tune with the breathing of the sea. If you rise to the surface and look back down, you might see the canopy spread beneath you, a vast floating meadow stretching to the horizon. Each bulb reflects a drop of sky. Each blade holds sunlight in its veins. It is one of Earth's oldest designs, unchanged for millions of years, yet still vital, still essential. When you drift above it, you understand that the ocean's calm is not emptiness, but intricate fullness, a balance so precise that it can only be called sacred. And so, as the day ends and the tides shift once more, the kelp forest continues its eternal dance. Its fronds brush gently against one another, whispering secrets in a language older than wind. The sea otters close their eyes and spin slowly in the current, tethered by strands that sway like lullabies. The water darkens to indigo, but the forest does not fade. It hums quietly beneath the waves, a living testament to patience, flexibility, and grace. Somewhere in that motionless motion lies a truth as steady as the tide. To live well is to drift without losing root, to bend without breaking, and to rise again, always toward the light. 12 mangrove edgelands, at the meeting place of land and sea, where tides hesitate before turning, there grows a forest unlike any other. Its trees stand on roots that rise from the water like a congregation of wooden hands, fingers spread wide in balance. These are the mangroves, keepers of the shoreline, guardians of the in-between. They thrive where few others can, in brackish water that shifts between salt and fresh, between calm and flood. to stand among them, whether ankle-deep in their mirror-like shallows or drifting quietly between their trunks, is to feel the stillness of the world's threshold. Here the air smells of salt and humus, of leaf and tide, of beginnings that are also endings. Mangroves are architects of patience. Their roots, called prop roots, curve and twist above the surface, giving the appearance of trees that walk. In truth, they do not move. The world moves around them. Twice each day the tide rises to cover their feet, and twice each day it falls away, leaving them standing tall upon their intricate stilts. Between those tides, countless creatures find refuge. Crabs scuttling sideways, small fish darting like shadows, tiny snails tracing spirals along the wood. The roots hold the sediment together, keeping the shore from drifting into the sea. They catch what the rivers bring, leaves, silt, seeds, and turn it into new land, slowly, grain by grain. Each mangrove is a small, living dam, shaping the edge of continents with nothing more than persistence. If you look closely at the water around their roots, you can see how alive it is. Shrimp flick through the beams of light, their translucent bodies flashing silver and pink. Juvenile fish shelter here, safe from the open sea until they are large enough to venture outward. The forest hums with small sounds, the snap of a shrimp's claw, the soft clicking of crabs on bark, the faint rustle of leaves, moved by nothing more than breath. This place is neither fully silent nor loud. It is filled with the music of subtle things, the quiet industry of those who live by the rhythm of the tide. Above, the mangrove leaves are thick and waxy, shining green even under overcast skies. They are designed for thrift. Each leaf acts as a careful accountant of salt, drawing in what it needs from the brackish water and excreting the rest through tiny crystals that glisten on its surface. When the tide rises too high and salt becomes abundant, the trees simply close the pores on their roots, refusing the ocean's entry. When rain falls and fresh water returns, they open again, ready to drink. In this way, mangroves practice a kind of quiet discernment. They take what sustains them and let go of what would harm them, neither resisting nor surrendering, but adjusting, always adjusting to what the day brings. Their seeds, too, are lessons in adaptation. Instead of waiting for the dry ground that never comes, mangrove seeds germinate while still attached to the parent tree. They grow into slender green spears called propagules, each capable of floating for months before finding a new home. When the time is right, the parent releases them, and they drift upon the currents like small voyagers, their tips pointing downward, as if already remembering the ground they have yet to find. Some are carried far out to sea before washing ashore again, where they anchor in mud and begin to rise. Thus, the mangrove forest expands, not by conquest, but by patience, each new tree the quiet consequence of a journey guided by tide and chance. Morning in the mangrove forest is soft and pale. The rising sun filters through the canopy, striking the still water in trembling gold. The roots cast long shadows, creating mazes of light and reflection. Fiddler crabs emerge from their burrows, their one large claw raised like a greeting. Birds gather herons, with legs like reeds, kingfishers flashing in cobalt and rust, egrets moving with deliberate grace through the shallows. Their reflections ripple beside them, perfect and fragile, breaking only when the wind sighs. The air hums with the distant drone of insects and the far-off hush of waves beyond the estuary. This is not the roar of the open sea or the murmur of inland rivers, but something in between, a heartbeat slowed by equilibrium. By midday, the tide begins to rise again. The water thickens, carrying with it the scent of salt and decay, of leaves that have fallen and begun their long transformation into soil. The mangroves accept the returning sea as one accepts an old friend. The crabs climb higher on the trunks, the fish swim closer to the roots, and the forest becomes a reflection of itself. Above and below, green and gold trade places. You cannot tell where the trees end and their mirror begins. To watch this exchange is to see balance embodied, the eternal give and take that defines the edge of the world. Beneath the surface, unseen yet essential, the roots exhale oxygen into the mud, feeding bacteria that break down organic matter. This hidden labor enriches the water, nourishing the plankton that drift outward to the reefs and the open sea. What begins in shadow sustains the bright expanses beyond. The mangrove's calm industry connects ecosystems across vast distances. Forests feeding coral, coral feeding fish, fish returning as nutrients to the shore. It is the ocean's way of showing that stillness is never isolation. Even in the quietest corners, life circulates in wide, invisible spirals. When evening comes, the mangroves seem to deepen in color. The trunks turn silver-gray in the fading light. The water darkens to a deep green, and the sky above fills with long, amber streaks. The tide falls again, revealing mudflats glossy as mirrors. Small egrets step delicately through the shallows, hunting what the tide has left behind. As darkness grows, the air cools, and bioluminescent plankton begin to stir among the roots. Each movement of fish or wave leaves a glowing trace, faint blue lines tracing the forest's silhouette. The mangroves, for a moment, wear halos of light, their roots shining softly as if recalling the stars above. There is something timeless about these twilight hours. The forest stands half in water, half in air, balanced perfectly between two worlds. Its branches reach upward toward the sky's fading colors, while its roots sink downward into salt and shadow. Everything that lives here understands duality not as conflict, but as completion. The mangrove's entire existence is a meditation on balance. Fresh and salt, land and sea, air and water, growth and decay. It survives by accepting both sides, by belonging to neither entirely. When storms arrive, as they often do, the mangroves do not flee or crumble. Their roots hold fast, their trunks flex with the wind. Their canopy absorbs the force of waves, protecting the inland shore from erosion. After the tempest passes, their leaves may be torn, their branches scattered, but the roots remain, and from those roots, new shoots will rise. They are resilience embodied in wood and water, patience made visible. To walk among them after such a storm is to witness renewal, muddy yet magnificent, quiet yet unbroken. If you listen closely, the forest speaks without words. It tells you that strength is not hardness, but the ability to bend. It tells you that security lies not in separation, but in connection. It tells you that life thrives most where boundaries blur, where opposites meet and share their gifts. The mangroves, standing at the edge of the sea, are proof that peace can grow from tension and that beauty often hides in places that must endure uncertainty. As night deepens, the tide settles into its lowest ebb. The stars appear in the still water, reflected perfectly between the roots. You might stand there, watching them, tremble, feeling that the line between sky and sea has dissolved. Around you, the forest breathes slow, steady, ancient. Its roots hold the land together. Its leaves feed the air. The same wind that stirs the branches will one day touch the coral reefs miles away, and the same tide that laps at your feet will circle the globe before returning. In the mangrove edgelands, you can sense that vast continuity. The world feels whole here, bound by the soft logic of water and wood, and when the first hints of dawn begin again, the forest is ready. The crabs retreat to their burrows, the fish to their shelters, and the tide begins to rise once more, creeping back with the first light. The mangroves accept it without question, as they always have. In their slow, steadfast way, they remind us of what endures, not the solidity of land or the freedom of the sea, but the balance between them, the edge, the meeting point, the space where opposites breathe together. That is where life truly thrives. 13. The calm depths, far below the reach of sunlight, where the world grows blue, then green, then black. The ocean opens into a realm that feels almost outside of time. The pressure there is immense. Each square inch of space bears the weight of the world above it, yet the water does not collapse. It endures. Down here, the sea moves slowly, thick as glass, patient as stone. The surface storms are distant, their violence spent long before the waves could descend this far. Even sound takes on a different character, low and haunting, traveling great distances through the cold, dense dark. To enter this place is to step into the ocean's dream, a world where stillness has substance, where quiet has texture, and where even light must surrender to the gravity of peace. At first glance, one might imagine that such depths are lifeless, barren spaces, untouched by movement. But life persists here, adapted to the darkness with exquisite precision. The creatures of the deep are shaped not by abundance, but by absence. They glow with their own bioluminescence, small lanterns in the endless night, an anglerfish's lure swaying like a lonely star, a jellyfish pulsing with a faint blue heartbeat, a tiny shrimp flashing once before, fading back into invisibility. These lights are not just for beauty. They are language, lure, camouflage, defense. Each flicker is a message in the dialect of survival. Yet together, they create something almost holy. Constellations beneath the sea, drifting through blackness, like the slow breath of the planet itself. The pressure in these depths is so great that human imagination struggles to grasp it. Thousands of tons pressing on every square meter, the kind of weight that would crush metal as easily as it folds paper. And yet, here, soft-bodied creatures flourish. Their secret lies in flexibility. They do not resist the pressure, they embody it. The ocean presses inward, and they press outward with equal gentleness, achieving perfect equilibrium. There is a quiet lesson in that peace, born not of defiance, but of harmony. To live here is to yield completely to the world and, in doing so, to survive it. The temperature hovers just above freezing, and light from the sun never arrives. Only the faintest ghosts of blue manage to slip this far, soon swallowed by the dark. But instead of emptiness, the deep holds a kind of fullness, a silence that is not absence, but depth itself. Sediments drift slowly downward from the upper ocean flakes of organic matter, tiny remains of once living things. Scientists call this steady rain of particles marine snow. It falls without sound or rush, a slow cascade that feeds the deep, connecting surface and abyss. Every mote is a memory of sunlight, transformed into nourishment for unseen life. When you look at it this way, even darkness has its inheritance of light. Somewhere between 2 and 6 kilometers beneath the waves lies the abyssal plain, a landscape of undulating hills and trenches stretching across most of the planet. It is the largest habitat on Earth and the least disturbed. No waves break here, no wind stirs. The seafloor is covered in fine silt, soft and undisturbed except by the passing of the occasional creature, an eel-like fish tracing an invisible path, a brittle star moving on delicate arms, a crab leaving faint hieroglyphs in the sand. Every movement here feels intentional, every gesture deliberate. The slowness of life is not laziness but necessity. Metabolism itself has adapted to scarcity. Even the beating of hearts, where they exist, occurs at a measured, thoughtful pace. Above the abyss, there are mountains, underwater ridges taller than the Himalayas, volcanoes that rise unseen and sometimes flare with quiet fire. Around these hydrothermal vents, where superheated water bursts from cracks in the Earth's crust, life gathers in improbable abundance. tube worms taller than a person cluster in the scalding outflow, their red plumes fluttering in mineral-rich currents. Giant clams open and close like patient machines. Bacteria thrive here without sunlight, drawing energy from the chemistry of the deep rather than the radiance of the sky. It is a reminder that life does not require light, only balance, a steady exchange of energy, a constant conversation between matter and motion. The calm depths are also archives. Layer by layer, the ocean floor records the slow history of the world. Each grain of sediment carries with it a trace of what once lived above a fragment of shell, a speck of dust from faraway deserts, a whisper of volcanic ash. Over millennia, these tiny testimonies accumulate into geological memory. If you could read it like a book, you would find the stories of ice ages, of extinctions, of migrations and renewals. The seabed holds more than fossils. It holds the rhythm of existence itself, written in the language of time. To imagine floating here is to imagine perfect suspension. The water around you is heavy and still, yet it supports you entirely. The darkness presses close, not as menace, but as presence. You hear nothing but the faint murmur of your own breath and the soft pulse of distant currents moving with the patience of continents. In such a place, thought slows until it becomes something else, something like listening. The deep sea does not demand attention, it invites it. It asks you to let go of haste, to measure time not in minutes but in moments of being. Here, the smallest movement feels sacred because everything else is still. Even motion itself is different in the depths. Currents drift like sleepwalkers, looping around seamounts and slipping into trenches with the ease of dreams. They carry warmth, oxygen, and the faintest traces of life downward, and in return, they lift memory and minerals upward to feed the surface. This exchange happens in silence, unseen but unbroken, binding the shallow and the deep into one whole. When you trace the path of these slow rivers through the abyss, you begin to see the ocean not as water, but as thought fluid, recursive, endlessly circling back upon itself. In the blackness, your sense of space changes. There is no horizon, no direction. The only measure of distance is the faint shimmer of a passing creature, or the gradual fade of your own light. Some explorers have spoken of the strange comfort that comes with this sensory surrender, as if the absence of boundaries reveals something essential about belonging. In the calm depths, there is no need for separation. You are simply part of the medium itself, a temporary arrangement of molecules in a continuum that has existed since before memory began. There is a paradox here that feels almost spiritual. The deeper you go, the more alive the silence becomes. It hums with potential energy, with the slow turning of unseen cycles. The calm is not emptiness, but connection, not quietness, but equilibrium. The creatures that dwell here do not rush or compete. They live according to the measured rhythm of their world. In their unhurried existence, they mirror the vast patience of the sea itself. To watch them is to glimpse another kind of wisdom, one that values endurance over speed, stillness over struggle. As you ascend again, light gradually returns. The black fades into blue, then turquoise, then the shimmering silver of the surface. But something of the deep remains within you, a softness, a slower pulse, a sense of gravity that lingers even in air. The calm depths remind you that beneath all the turbulence of the world lies something unmoving and eternal. It is not the absence of life, but its foundation, the stillness from which motion arises, the silence that holds every sound. And when you look out upon the sea from the shore, its surface bright and restless, you will know that beneath each glittering wave lies that other world, the slow, quiet realm that underpins it all. The ocean, in its fullness, is both storm and stillness, both raw and hush. The calm depths are its heart, steady and unbroken, beating in dark harmony with the stars. If you listen closely enough, you can almost hear it, the slow pulse of the earth itself, echoing through water and time, reminding you that peace is not above or beyond the world but within it, deep as the sea, patient as silence, waiting always beneath the surface. 14. The breath of waves. Every movement of the sea begins with breath. To watch waves roll toward the shore is to see the ocean inhale and exhale in endless rhythm, drawing energy from wind and gravity, from moonlight and the turning of the earth itself. The waves never tire. They rise, fold, fall, and rise again, tracing invisible circuits across the surface of the world. Each one is both ancient and new, the continuation of a motion that began long before memory. When you stand before them, you are standing in the presence of continuity, the slow pulse of a planet that has been breathing since its birth. A wave begins as a whisper of air across water. Wind brushes the surface, and the friction stirs a pattern. Small ripples that catch more air, feeding upon themselves until they become something larger. Energy travels outward, while the water beneath hardly moves at all. Each particle circles gently in place, rising and falling, but never drifting far. The wave is not a body, it is a journey, a pulse of energy passing through matter, the visible expression of invisible force. To look upon it is to see motion given form, the physical embodiment of patience. Out at sea, the waves are long and smooth, their crests unbroken, their rhythm steady. They can travel for thousands of miles, guided only by the wind that birthed them and the pull of gravity that keeps them true. These are called swells, and they move like great breathing beings, long exhales that carry the memory of distant storms. When they meet the continental shelf and the seabed begins to rise, swells slow and lift, folding upon themselves as their energy compresses. What was once calm and rolling becomes upright and luminous, the moment before the wave breaks. The water gathers light on its curve, green at first, then white as it curls, collapsing into itself with a sound that is both birth and release. Every wave that reaches the shore is the end of a story written across thousands of miles. The energy that began as a breath in the open ocean concludes here, in a burst of foam, scattering into sound and spray. Yet the ending is not loss, it is renewal. The broken wave draws back, dragging sand and shells into new shapes, smoothing the beach into a pattern that the next tide will rewrite. No two waves leave the same trace. The shore is a palimpsest, forever erased and rewritten by the breathing sea. If you stand barefoot at the edge and let the water pull around your ankles, you can feel this rewriting in real time, the soft drag of receding water, the tug of gravity shared between sea and self. There is a rhythm in waves that mirrors the body's own. The slow rise and fall echoes the lungs, the heart's systole and diastole, the quiet repetition that sustains life. Many who listen to the ocean feel their breath unconsciously synchronize with its pace. The mind, so easily pulled into hurry, slows to match the water's long inhalations. In this way, the sea teaches calm without words. To listen to waves is to be reminded that rest and motion are not opposites, they are phases of the same pulse. The wave must rise to fall, must fall to rise. Nothing in nature moves in straight lines. Everything flows in circles. Even within their seeming simplicity, waves contain infinite variation. Some arrive small and gentle, brushing the sand like fingertips. Others thunder in great walls, curling and collapsing with the weight of continents. Each wave is shaped by what it meets: the wind above, the slope below, the obstacles it finds along the way. The same swell, touching a different shore, may behave in entirely different ways. There is humility in this. Even the ocean's power is guided by the world it moves through. No wave commands its own path. It responds, adapts, and continues. Its strength lies not in control but in acceptance. Between waves, the ocean pauses. These intervals, though brief, carry their own serenity. The surface flattens, the foam retreats, and the world seems to hold its breath. It is in these moments of stillness that the full depth of the sea becomes visible. You can see the reflection of the sky, the subtle play of light beneath the surface, the colors that live just beyond reach. Then, before you realize it, the next rise begins. The horizon lifts, and the pattern resumes. Each wave is a reminder that stillness and movement are two halves of the same conversation. The pause is not an end, but a gathering of energy for what comes next. From the shore, you can trace the sound of waves through every scale of motion. There is the high hiss of foam, the deep boom of water meeting rock, the low, continuous murmur that seems to hum through the ground itself. These layers form an orchestra of repetition and variation. It is said that the human brain, when listening to the rhythm of waves, begins to produce slower, steadier brainwaves. In response, alpha and theta frequencies associated with relaxation, imagination, and sleep. Perhaps that is why so many find peace beside the sea. Why the sound of water has lulled us since the first nights of our species. It is not just pleasant, it is primal. It returns us to the rhythm we have always known. Beneath the breaking waves, there is another world, a constant rolling of sand grains, a stirring of silt, a quiet sculpting of landscapes unseen from above. The same energy that shapes the beach also carves canyons, builds sandbars, and moves nutrients through the water. Every wave, no matter how small, participates in this hidden labor. Over time, their collective patience reshapes the world. Even the hardest stone yields eventually, not to violence, but to repetition. The sea teaches persistence without aggression, change without haste. There are places on Earth where waves never truly rest. Along certain coasts, they have been breaking for millions of years, ceaseless and tireless. They have witnessed every sunrise, erased every footprint, and sung through every night. Yet for all their endurance, they are never the same twice. The ocean remembers motion but not form. Every crest is born, breaks, and dies in moments. Its beauty is inseparable from its impermanence. That is the lesson carried in the foam, that transience is not tragedy, but transformation. To sit before the sea at dusk, when the last light stretches thin across the water, is to feel the full weight of this rhythm. The horizon glows with the last warmth of day, and the waves turn molten in its reflection. Each one carries a fragment of light toward you, delivering it to the shore before retreating into shadow. It is a procession of small farewells, each one complete, each one part of the whole. If you close your eyes, the sound fills you, steady, immense, intimate. You cannot tell where your breath ends and the ocean's begins. Even in sleep, the waves continue. The tide advances and withdraws, reshaping the coast while the world dreams. Somewhere out in the dark, far beyond human sight, the first breath of a new wave begins again. A whisper of air across water, the same beginning repeated endlessly. There is comfort in that constancy, in knowing that while everything else changes, the sea's breathing remains. It is the sound of the planet at peace, the slow respiration of something vast and kind. So when you next stand beside the ocean, let its rhythm move through you. Let it slow your heartbeat until it matches the sea's pulse. Listen to the breath of waves, their endless cycle of creation and release. They ask for nothing, demand nothing, but they offer everything. Continuity, patience, forgiveness. Each wave that falls upon the shore carries with it a quiet reminder that every motion in life, no matter how turbulent, eventually finds its calm. The sea breathes, and through it, so do you. The air fills, the tide rises, The heart expands. Then, gently, everything returns. 15. The tide's eternal return. Twice each day, the sea rises to greet the land, and twice each day it recedes, returning to its own vastness. This pulse, though measured in hours, feels eternal, older than mountains, older than memory. It is the tide, the slow and ceaseless breath of the planet, drawn by the moon's invisible hand and steadied by the gravity of the sun. Everything that touches the shore listens to its rhythm. Fishermen plan their work by it. Birds feed and rest according to its flow. Even the smallest grains of sand feel its motion, lifted and carried in the hush of retreat. The tide is not a single movement, but a conversation between sky and sea, a whisper that loops endlessly between them. When you stand at the water's edge and watch the tide advance, the motion seems simple waves sliding farther up the beach, one after another. Yet beneath this apparent simplicity lies exquisite precision. The gravitational pull of the moon draws the ocean toward it, bulging the water slightly along the line between Earth and sky. On the far side of the planet, inertia forms another bulge, and as the Earth spins beneath these twin humps of water, coastlines take turns stepping into their embrace. To us, it appears as the rising and falling of the sea, but in truth, it is the Earth itself that turns through the moon's patient influence. The oceans do not chase the moon, they follow its rhythm, loyal and unhurried. At high tide, the sea is full of confidence. It climbs the rocks, fills the coves, and wraps its arms around the roots of mangroves and the legs of piers. The sound deepens, waves strike with more certainty, and the air tastes stronger of salt. Shorebirds lift from their perches, and crabs retreat into higher burrows. The line between sea and land disappears, replaced by a seamless shimmer. Then, after hours of fullness, the water begins to sigh, withdrawing its reach in slow, deliberate stages. Low tide exposes what has been hidden: pools of clear water cupping fragments of shell, seaweed curled like sleeping hair, the faint tracks of creatures that live between tides. To walk among these pools is to see the ocean's other face, delicate and intimate, full of small miracles that vanish as the water returns. This rhythm of rising and falling defines the lives of countless beings. Barnacles, clinging to rocks, open their feathery appendages only when covered by water, feeding in brief bursts before the tide leaves them dry. Sea anemones shrink into themselves, sealing moisture until the next flood arrives. Mussels and limpets close their shells tight, surviving the hours of exposure by faith in the rhythm that has never failed them. Even fish have learned to adapt. Some, like the gobies, hide in damp crevices until the tide returns, while others ride the waves inland to hunt among the shallows. Life here is written in intervals, each creature fluent in the language of return. The sound of the tide is different from the sound of waves. Waves are immediate, quick inhalations. The tide is a sentence drawn out over hours. Its music is long and low, a tone that shifts subtly with distance and depth. In estuaries, the rising tide mingles with the river's current, forming swirling eddies where fresh and salt water braid together. In tidal flats, the water seeps forward, almost silently, a soft shimmer across the sand that seems to breathe rather than flow. On rocky coasts, it arrives with a hum, filling cracks and caves, resonating like the slow tuning of a vast instrument. To listen to it is to hear time itself in motion, steady, cyclical, without haste. For early humans, tides were the first clocks. Long before calendars or hours were invented, the sea's breathing marked the passage of days. People learned to read its signs: the dark, wet line on a rock, the stranded rack of seaweed, the position of the moon above the horizon. The tide told them when to fish, when to gather mussels, when to cross rivers that would later flood with the returning sea. Even now, In an age of machines and satellites, we remain bound to it. The tide dictates harbors and shipping routes, guides the migrations of whales, determines the breeding cycles of turtles. Though invisible to most of us, its pull shapes every moment of oceanic life, from the plankton that drift at the mercy of its rise to the great kelp forests that sway to its pulse. To observe the tide is to witness the world's quiet symmetry. Every retreat is matched by a return, every fullness by an emptiness, waiting to be filled again. The shoreline shifts but never vanishes. It exists as an agreement rather than a boundary. The sand, though moved and rearranged daily, never loses its essence. It yields to the water, then reforms itself in the absence of it. The tide teaches resilience not through resistance, but through renewal. It reminds us that departure is never final, that the act of leaving is often a prelude to coming home. During the moments of slack water, when the tide pauses between rising and falling, the sea holds its breath. The surface smooths into glass, and the horizon seems closer, as though the planet itself were resting for an instant between heartbeats. These are the most delicate minutes of the day, neither ebb nor flow, when time feels suspended. Fishermen call it the stand of the tide. For those who wait quietly then, the world seems perfectly balanced. Every sound magnified, every ripple deliberate. The calm is brief but profound, a reminder that even in constant motion, the ocean finds moments to rest. When storms arrive, the tides change character. Wind and pressure pull upon the surface, lifting it higher, pushing it farther. Waves roar, and the sea crosses its usual borders, reclaiming what it has momentarily lent. Yet even this fury obeys the deeper law. The storm passes, and the tide returns to its patient rhythm, its heartbeat unchanged. No matter how wild the surface becomes, the underlying pattern remains steady. In that constancy lies comfort, the knowledge that equilibrium always follows disturbance, that even the ocean's power bends to its own order. To walk along the beach at low tide is to walk across memory. The sand still glistens where the water has been, its surface pocked with the signatures of the tide's retreat, the curving trails of snails, the delicate imprints of bird feet, the lacework left by small streams as they drain toward the horizon. Each mark is temporary, destined to vanish when the sea returns. Yet their transience is what makes them precious. They are the handwriting of water, proof that movement leaves beauty even as it erases itself. As evening falls, the tide rises once more, gathering its scattered reflections of sky. The sun's last light stretches across the water, and the waves carry that light back toward the land in trembling bands of gold. When darkness comes, the sea glows faintly with the reflection of the moon, the same moon whose pull guides its every motion. The connection between them is silent, but unwavering, a cosmic conversation that never ends. In this way, each tide is a love letter written from ocean to moon and back again, the language of attraction expressed through distance. If you listen long enough, you may begin to feel that same pull within yourself. The tide moves not only through the water, but through the body. The salt in your blood, the rhythm of your pulse, the way your breath expands and contracts, all mirror the motion of the sea. We are, in a small but certain way, part of the tide's return. Its cycles are our own, its patience our inheritance. When the night deepens and the sound of the surf steadies into its endless hum, you can lie down and feel the faint vibration of the Earth's water moving toward the moon. It is everywhere, beneath cliffs, beneath ships, beneath continents. The planet breathes through its oceans, and through them, it breathes through you. Tomorrow, the tide will rise again, the same and yet new, the ancient pattern, repeating in infinite variation. And perhaps, as you close your eyes, you will feel that rhythm in your sleep, the slow return, the gentle withdrawal, the promise that nothing in nature ever truly ends. It only circles back, patient as the sea, eternal as the tide. 16. The salt of life. Every ocean begins with salt. It threads through the waves, invisible yet ever-present, binding the sea into a single, living body. Without it, the water would be ordinary, still vast, still deep, but lifeless. Salt is the memory of the earth itself, a remnant of its beginnings when the planet was molten and raw, when vapor condensed into the first rain. And that rain met the new stones of the world. From those stones, minerals were drawn, washed into the basins that would become oceans. Each drop of seawater still carries that first conversation between rock and sky. The ocean's salt is the taste of time made tangible, a flavor both ancient and essential. When you taste the sea on your lips, you are tasting the history of the planet. It is the same salt that once crystallized in the dried beds of vanished seas, the same composition that flowed through the veins of early life. The salinity of seawater, about 35 parts per thousand, is mirrored in the balance of salts within your own blood and tears. This is not coincidence, but kinship. We are descendants of the sea, our bodies still carrying its signature chemistry. Every heartbeat echoes the ocean's pulse. Every cell swims in a briny memory of where we began. The salt within us is not merely substance, it is inheritance, the mineral whisper of home. The ocean's salt is mostly sodium chloride, but it holds traces of everything the earth has offered to water: calcium from coral reefs, magnesium from volcanic rock, potassium from rivers that have crossed whole continents. Rain and river bring these minerals to the sea in endless procession. And though the ocean loses some to evaporation and precipitation, the balance remains nearly constant. It is equilibrium perfected, the same ratio of salt maintained through millions of years. The sea, for all its movement, knows how to keep itself whole. Salt does not simply exist in the sea, it shapes it. Because of salt, water becomes denser, heavier, more willing to sink when cooled. It drives the global circulation that carries warmth and nutrients around the world, the same thermohaline currents that sustain life in the deep and temper the climate above. It is salt that keeps the sea from freezing, except in its coldest corners, and salt that allows sound to travel so purely through its depths. Every wave, every current, every echo depends on this invisible architecture. The taste of salt is the taste of stability, the quiet force that underlies all motion. In the shallows where the sun burns strongest, salt often crystallizes, forming delicate geometric patterns on rocks and sand. Each crystal is a miniature cathedral of order, shaped by evaporation and light. Ancient peoples once believed these crystals held the sea's spirit, its purity and strength condensed into solid form. They used them for preservation, for ritual, for healing. In every culture, salt has been sacred, a substance of both necessity and reverence. It preserves what would otherwise decay, it flavors what would otherwise be bland, and it purifies what has been spoiled. The sea does the same on a grander scale, forever renewing itself through the simple chemistry of dissolution and return. Along the edges of the world, salt flats shimmer where ancient oceans once breathed. The ground gleams white beneath the sun, and when the wind blows across it, you can almost hear the ghost of waves. These places remind us that nothing in nature is truly lost, only transformed. The sea that once lay there still exists, dispersed in clouds, in rain, in rivers, in the taste of your own skin after swimming. The cycle continues. Salt dissolved, carried, reclaimed. The earth, through water, recycles its own memory, turning time into texture. For the creatures of the sea, salt is both cradle and challenge. Each organism must find its balance with the surrounding water, neither letting salt overwhelm nor letting it drain away. Fish in the ocean drink constantly, their bodies skilled at separating the fresh from the brine, keeping their internal chemistry steady. Coral polyps, sponges, plankton, all depend on this precise salinity. Too little, and their cells swell and burst. Too much, and they shrivel. Life in the ply. Ocean thrives, not by escaping the salt, but by making peace with it. To exist here is to live in conversation with minerals, to trust the constancy of chemistry. The mangrove, rooted at the meeting of fresh and salt, has learned to filter and exhale what it cannot use. Its leaves glisten with tiny crystals, the sea's residue left behind as dew. Seabirds, too, have evolved special glands to rid their bodies of excess salt, allowing them to drink the ocean without harm. Every adaptation tells the same story: survival through balance. Salt, for all its harshness, teaches moderation. It demands respect and rewards resilience. When storms churn the ocean, salt rides upon the air. Spray fills the atmosphere, tiny droplets suspended like the planet's breath. These aerosols, seed clouds, shaping weather across continents. The salt of the sea becomes the rain that falls on distant fields, the snow on faraway mountains, the very taste of air near the coast. The tang that fills your lungs and sharpens your thoughts is the sea's gift to the sky. Through it, the planet circulates its essence, a global alchemy of water and salt, always moving, always renewing. Salt has always marked human life. Civilizations rose along coasts and salt marshes, their economies built upon trade in this simple crystal. The word salary itself comes from the Latin for salt, a reminder that it was once as precious as gold. To share salt with another was to seal friendship, to break bread in peace. Sailors carried it to preserve their food, travelers to bless their journeys. Even now, to scatter salt over one's shoulder is to cast away misfortune, an echo of ancient gratitude to the sea that gave it. Our myths remember what our reason sometimes forgets: that salt is the symbol of endurance, of connection, of the unbroken bond between water and life. If you dissolve a handful of sea salt in clear water and hold it up to the light, the liquid looks unchanged, yet within it lies the essence of mountains and rain, volcano and wind, river and reef. It contains stories too vast for the eye to see, written in ions and currents. Every sip of seawater is a history lesson, every drop a lineage. Scientists have measured the age of the ocean's salt and found it as old as the continents themselves, evidence that the Earth's surface and its waters have been in dialogue since the beginning. The sea remembers everything. To swim in salt water is to feel that memory upon your skin. The buoyancy lifts you gently, reminding you that the ocean does not seek to pull you down, but to hold you. Salt increases that lift, lessening gravity's insistence, allowing the body to drift with ease. Floating becomes meditation. The water supports you without effort, and as you lie upon it, you can feel the pulse of waves beneath your spine, the sun above your face, and the taste of salt on your lips. You are both separate from and part of the sea, buoyed by the same chemistry that shapes your blood. In that moment, identity blurs into unity, and peace feels almost physical, a weightless calm. When the sun sets over the water, the air cools and the salt begins to crystallize again upon the rocks. The tide recedes, leaving a lacework of mineral lines that catch the last light and glint like constellations fallen to earth. The smell of salt sharpens in the dusk, grounding you in the world's simplest truth, that everything living carries something of the sea. You might think of your own tears, how they sting and soothe, how they mirror the sea's composition so perfectly. We cry salt because we come from salt. Our sadness, our healing, our love all flow from the same ancient water. So when you taste the ocean, when you breathe its air or feel its mist upon your face, remember that you are meeting the oldest part of yourself. The salt that fills the sea is the salt that fills your veins. It is the planet's heartbeat rendered into substance, the Earth's story, told through chemistry. In every grain, a memory of fire and rain. In every wave, the echo of the beginning. And in every breath, the faint tang of the ocean's truth, that life, for all its complexity, is simply water remembering the taste of the world. 17. The ocean's mirror. When you look upon the surface of the sea, you are not seeing only water, you are seeing reflection. The ocean is the planet's great mirror, turning the sky upon itself, holding clouds, moon, and stars in its patient hands. Every dawn, it borrows the color of the world above, painting itself in shifting silvers and blues, in the faintest blush of coral and rose. Every dusk, it gives that color back, folding the light into quietness until only darkness remains. In this way, the sea performs an ancient ritual, exchanging radiance with the heavens in a cycle as old as the earth itself. To watch it is to witness conversation made visible, silence speaking to silence through light. The surface of the sea is never still. Even on the calmest day, there are tiny ripples, undulations too subtle to measure but always there. These gentle disturbances catch light and bend it, scattering it into mosaics that shimmer and shift with every breath of wind. The sea does not reflect perfectly. It distorts, embellishes, transforms. The clouds it holds are softer, more fluid. The sun it mirrors is scattered into 1,000 fragments of gold. This imperfection is what makes the reflection alive. It breathes. It changes with every heartbeat of the world. To gaze upon it is to see beauty not as clarity but as movement, truth not as still image but as flow. At dawn, when the first light touches the horizon, the ocean blushes faintly as if waking from deep sleep. The color of morning glides across its surface like silk, pale yellow, giving way to pink, then to silver, then to the steady blue of day. The world above and the world below seem briefly to merge. The line of the horizon softens until sky and water are indistinguishable. In that moment, the illusion of separation dissolves, and you understand that what divides them is nothing but light's gentle boundary. The ocean mirrors the sky, not to copy it but to remind it of their shared vastness. When clouds pass overhead, the sea becomes a gallery of shadows. Each layer of vapor finds its reflection below, doubled and deepened by water's patience. Sometimes, when storms gather, the ocean darkens until it looks like liquid slate, heavy and expectant. The first raindrops strike, and the surface bursts into thousands of concentric circles, each drop a question, each ripple an answer. Light disappears for a time, replaced by rhythm. Yet even in darkness, the mirror holds form. When lightning strikes, for a heartbeat, the sea becomes glass again, showing the world to itself in blinding clarity before folding back into calm. At night, the ocean's mirror belongs to the moon. The pale arc of light stretches across the water like a path made for dreaming. The stars, scattered above, tremble upon the waves, their reflections broken but no less beautiful. If you stand on the shore during a clear night, you might notice how the sea collects starlight with an intimacy that land never knows. The water accepts each shimmer, distorts it slightly, and sends it back as a flicker, a gesture of gratitude. It is as if the ocean is conversing with the sky, acknowledging its infinite companion through motion instead of words. Sailors once used this mirror as their map. Before compasses and satellites, they read the reflections of the stars to find their way home. They learned to recognize constellations not only above, but also upon the water. The mirrored heavens guided them, teaching them that navigation is a dialogue between what is seen and what is echoed. Even now, when ships trace their paths through electronic means, the stars still speak to those who look. To glance over the side of a vessel at night and see the universe doubled beneath you is to feel suspended between two infinities, the cosmos above and the cosmos below, each perfect in its depth, each breathing in rhythm with the other. Sometimes the mirror turns inward. On quiet days, when you gaze at the water from the shore, your own reflection stares back. It wavers slightly, shaped by ripples, stretched and softened until you hardly recognize it. Yet there is peace in that distortion. The sea refuses to show you as you are. Instead, it reveals you as part of something larger. Your face becomes a pattern of light and movement, blending with the world around it. In that fleeting image, you are reminded that identity, like reflection, is fluid. You are never entirely fixed. You shift with wind and wave. You change with the tides of your own becoming. The ocean's mirror is also a veil. Beneath it lies another world, darker, quieter, full of hidden color. Sunlight enters the surface and bends, scattering through the layers below. Reds and oranges fade first, then yellows, until only blue remains. The deeper you go, the more the mirror closes, becoming opaque from below. For the creatures who live in the depths, the surface is not a reflection, but a barrier of light, a moving ceiling they cannot reach. To us, it gleams with beauty. To them, it glows like a distant star. The mirror shows one world to the other, but never allows them to meet fully. It holds both apart, yet binds them through mutual longing. There are days when the mirror vanishes completely. When the sea is rough and the wind fierce, the surface shatters into chaos. Foam replaces reflection, and the sky disappears from sight. But even then, the relationship endures. Beneath the turmoil, the calm persists. When the storm passes, when the wind sighs its last, the sea smooths itself again, polishing its surface until it catches the returning light. The mirror never breaks it, only hides for a while, waiting for quiet to return. In this, it resembles the heart, disturbed by turbulence, yet always capable of stillness again. On rare mornings after rain, when mist hovers above the water and the air is utterly still, the ocean becomes perfect glass. The reflections are so sharp that you cannot tell which world is real. Birds seem to fly both above and below. A single ripple can break the illusion, reminding you that even perfection in nature is fleeting. The sea teaches that beauty is not the absence of imperfection, but the dance between clarity and change. What makes the reflection mesmerizing is not its accuracy, but its willingness to distort gracefully. The ocean's mirror does more than show, it absorbs. It gathers light, heat, and shadow, storing them in layers that move slowly through currents. The warmth of the sun, captured on the surface, travels down to sustain life in deeper waters. The reflection is not just optical, it is physical, energetic. Every glimmer of sunlight that touches the sea enters a cycle of transformation, eventually returning to the air as vapor, to the land as rain, to the sea again as tide. What begins as light ends as nourishment, as movement, as life. When you watch the ocean at sunset, you see this transformation at its most profound. The sky burns with color, and the water receives it all: scarlet, gold, violet, blending them into a fluid painting that lasts only minutes. The sea reflects not only light, but time itself, turning each moment into an image before letting it slip away. The horizon glows, and for a heartbeat, the earth seems to hold the heavens in its arms. Then the colors fade, the mirror darkens, and night unfolds once more. Yet something remains, a calmness that lingers long after the light is gone, the quiet satisfaction of a reflection completed. To see yourself in the ocean's mirror is to remember your connection to everything reflected there: the clouds, the stars, the moon, the wind. You are part of the same conversation. Your eyes, in seeing, become part of what is seen. The boundary between observer and reflection disappears, and all that remains is presence. The sky watching itself through the sea breathing through you. So next time you find yourself before the water, look not for your own image, but for what the ocean remembers. Watch how it receives light without grasping it, how it lets go without regret. It reflects everything and keeps nothing. In that, it offers the gentlest wisdom that peace comes from openness, that beauty is the art of yielding. The ocean's mirror teaches not how to see, but how to be, luminous, accepting, and forever in motion. 18. The deep blue mind. There is a certain calm that only the sea can teach, a stillness that begins not in the world around you, but in the mind itself. Scientists call it the blue mind, a quiet state of awe, reflection, and gentle focus that arises when humans encounter water. It is not mere relaxation, but remembrance, a deep recognition of something, ancient and shared. The ocean speaks to the oldest parts of our biology, the parts that once floated, that once swam, that still pulse with the rhythm of waves. To look upon water is to awaken that memory, to feel within your own body the same ebb and flow that shapes the tides. The deep blue mind is what happens when thought slows enough to listen to the sea. When you stand at the shore, your senses rearrange themselves. The sound of the waves draws attention outward, steady and repetitive, a natural metronome that synchronizes with your heartbeat. The air cools against your skin, carrying salt and moisture. The horizon stretches wide and open, uncluttered by walls or lines, inviting your gaze to soften. Breathing deepens without instruction. In these first few moments, your body begins to align with the water's rhythm. It is not something you decide. It happens on its own, as though the sea remembers for you how to rest. The color blue plays its part. Across cultures and centuries, blue has been the color of serenity, of depth, of infinite space. The ocean holds every shade of it, from the pale, translucent turquoise of shallow lagoons to the indigo black of trenches beyond light. Blue is the color that invites introspection, that quiets the chatter of the mind. Psychologists have found that looking at expanses of blue can lower blood pressure, ease tension, and slow the pulse. But even without science, the body knows. It has always known. Our eyes evolved under this sky and over these seas. Our cells still carry traces of their chemistry. The deep blue mind is simply the feeling of belonging to that origin. To float in the water is to surrender to this knowing completely. The buoyancy carries you without effort, cradling you in weightlessness. The line between body and sea begins to blur. You drift, neither fully in control nor in danger, suspended in a medium that holds you as gently as sleep. Your ears fill with the muffled hum of your own heartbeat. Your breath becomes the only measure of time. In that moment, thought itself changes texture. Ideas lose their edges. The noise of language fades, replaced by something slower and wordless, a kind of thinking made of rhythm, of pulse, of tide. It is here, in this floating stillness, that the deep blue mind opens fully. In this state, reflection takes on a new meaning. The sea reflects the sky, and you reflect the sea. Every concern of the land seems small compared to the expanse before you. Problems loosen, assumptions dissolve, and what remains is presence. You are not planning or remembering. You are simply here, moving gently with the water. The mind, once crowded, begins to resemble the ocean itself, vast, calm, layered, capable of holding both stillness and storm. The surface may ripple, but the depths remain tranquil. This is not escape, but return, a reuniting with the original equilibrium from which all awareness was born. Even listening to the sea can awaken this calm. The sound of waves has a pattern known to soothe the brain. Each wave builds, breaks, and fades, in a rhythm that mirrors the human breath. When you listen long enough, your breathing synchronizes unconsciously to the ocean's exhale. Neuroscientists studying this effect have found that the auditory cortex responds to such patterns by dampening activity in regions associated with stress and fear. The result is not emptiness, but openness, a clarity that feels both alert and peaceful. This too is the deep blue mind, the awareness that emerges when the noise of urgency fades. Divers describe a similar transformation as they descend beneath the waves. The deeper they go, the quieter the world becomes. Sunlight filters into shimmering columns. The surface noise recedes, and movement slows. Each breath through the regulator becomes deliberate, meditative. There is no speech, no distraction, only the sound of one's own inhale and exhale, and the vast silence surrounding it. Time stretches, perception sharpens. Fish glide past with effortless grace, and the diver's heartbeat joins the rhythm of the water. In such moments, thought gives way to awe. The mind, stripped of its usual clutter, feels both smaller and larger at once, a single note in the ocean's symphony. This state is not reserved for those who enter the sea. Even a simple gaze across still water can bring it forth. Lakes, rivers, and even a bowl of water catching light can quiet the nervous system in ways that forests or fields do not. Water has a paradoxical nature. It is both form and formless, both reflective and transparent. It invites contemplation because it is never only one thing. The eyes can rest upon it without resistance. It gives you something to see, but also something to feel, something to breathe with. The deep blue mind thrives in this ambiguity, finding peace in the balance between movement and stillness. Artists, poets, and thinkers have long sought this state in their work. Leonardo da Vinci wrote of watching the motion of water as a lesson in creativity, the endless variety of its currents, the way it adapts to every obstacle. Virginia Woolf described her own thoughts as waves, rising and falling, dissolving the boundary between self and world. The ocean does not merely calm the mind. It teaches it to think differently, to move with continuity instead of rigidity. Every idea, like a wave, must crest and recede to make room for the next. The deep blue mind understands that flow is not chaos, it is intelligence expressed through patience. When you allow yourself to listen to the ocean long enough, another awareness begins to emerge, the sense that you are part of something vast and intelligent, something that thinks through movement rather than words. The currents that travel the globe, the tides that rise and fall with the moon, the migrations of fish and whales, even the cycles of plankton blooming and fading, all are expressions of a single, breathing system. To recognize this is to feel less alone. The deep blue mind is not the quiet of isolation but of connection, the peace that comes from belonging to the pulse of a living world. Even away from the coast, this oceanic calm lingers in memory. The mind that has known water carries its rhythm within it. You might feel it when rain falls softly on your window, when a river's murmur reaches your ears, when you take a long breath and imagine waves folding gently over sand. These moments, brief as they are doorways back to that deeper rhythm. The blue mind is always near, waiting behind the noise of daily life, patient as the tide. The deep blue mind does not demand stillness. It creates it. It is not the silence of emptiness, but the fullness of presence. It is the part of you that knows, instinctively, how to slow without stopping, how to move without rushing. To dwell in it is to remember that peace is not escape, but participation. Participation in the grand, slow breathing of the world. So when you next find yourself by water, whether ocean or rain, river or pool, pause for a moment. Let your gaze soften. Let your breathing follow the rhythm of the waves or the ripples or the rain. Listen until you can no longer tell where the sound ends and your thoughts begin. That is the threshold of the deep blue mind. Beyond it lies a kind of remembering that you are mostly water, that you were born from its depths, and that you are, even now, shaped by its patience. In that remembering, peace arrives not as an idea, but as a tide, slow, sure, and endlessly returning. 19. The pulse of currents. Beneath the surface calm of the ocean lies a hidden architecture of motion, a world of invisible rivers threading through the deep. These are the currents, the ocean's veins, its arteries, its pulse. They carry warmth and cold, salt and life, memory and transformation. To watch a current is impossible, for it moves too vast and too slow for human eyes. Yet, to feel its presence is easy, for its influence reaches everywhere, in the shifting of clouds, in the breath of the wind, in the pattern of seasons. The currents are not simply water in motion. They are the heartbeat of the planet itself, keeping balance through their endless, unseen circulation. From space, the Earth's oceans appear serene, smooth as glass. But beneath that stillness, billions of tons of water are in perpetual motion, guided by forces both subtle and immense. The rotation of the Earth bends them through the Coriolis effect, twisting them into spirals that curve clockwise in the north and counterclockwise in the south. The sun warms the equator, creating bands of heat that drift toward the poles. Winds trace lines upon the surface, pulling the water into great gyres, slow spinning systems that move continents' worth of water in stately circles. Within these gyres are smaller eddies, twisting upon themselves like thoughts within thoughts, each turning with quiet intention. Some currents, like the Gulf Stream, are warm and bright, rivers of heat flowing through cold seas. Originating in the tropics, the Gulf Stream moves northward along the coast of North America, crossing the Atlantic to bring mild winters to Europe. Without it, London would know the climate of Labrador, and Paris would freeze under northern snow. Others, like the California Current, are cold, carrying deep, nutrient-rich water toward the equator, feeding life along its path. These opposing flows form the ocean's dialogue: heat and coolness, ascent and descent, surface and depth. It is a rhythm not of chaos, but of harmony, a continuous exchange that keeps the world alive. If you could dive deep enough to follow these currents, you would find that they move in layers, like the pages of an endless book. Near the surface, warm waters drift swiftly, tracing the shape of the winds. Deeper down, in twilight zones untouched by sunlight, colder and denser layers flow in the opposite direction, returning the balance. Together, they create loops of motion that circle the globe, linking oceans into a single, breathing organism. This global network of currents is sometimes called the conveyor belt, though its pace is gentler than that name suggests. A single molecule of water might take 1,000 years to complete its journey through the full system, a patience that makes time itself seem small. These currents shape every life within the sea. Plankton, the ocean's invisible forests, drift with them, feeding on nutrients carried from the depths. Their blooms color entire regions of the sea, painting the surface with green and gold. Fish follow their trails, migrating thousands of miles along the same paths generation after generation. Whales, too, travel by these hidden highways, guided by instinct and memory, their routes aligned with the invisible flows. Even coral reefs owe their existence to currents, for it is they that deliver the larvae, the oxygen, and the food that sustain them. Every motion in the sea is part of this greater circulation, each swirl of water both cause and effect, a note in a symphony older than the continents themselves. The power of these movements is gentle but absolute. They sculpt the coastlines, shape weather, and determine the fate of storms. When warm water from the equator drifts into colder latitudes, it releases energy into the air above, forming the great atmospheric currents that drive wind and rain. The monsoons of Asia, the hurricanes of the Caribbean, the fogs of California, all are born of the sea's slow turning. The ocean breathes, and the world inhales with it. The air we breathe, the rain we drink, the food that grows from the soil, all depend on this hidden pulse, this planetary tide that never rests. And yet, for all their vastness, the currents are delicate. A small change in temperature or salinity can alter their paths. As the planet warms, glaciers melt, fresh water flows into the northern seas, and the density of the water shifts. The great conveyor slows. Scientists measure these changes with care, listening to the ocean's heartbeat as a doctor listens to a patient's pulse. What they hear is not yet silence, but strain a reminder that even the most immense systems require balance to endure. The ocean is strong, but its strength is the strength of harmony, not defiance. When that harmony falters, the entire world feels its tremor. To imagine the life of a current is to imagine patience beyond comprehension. A single drop of water that sinks beneath the icy surface of the North Atlantic may drift for centuries before rising again near Antarctica, warmed by equatorial light. Along the way, it will pass through darkness and pressure, through coral reefs and abyssal plains, through narrow straits where continents nearly touch. It will carry within it traces of the air it once knew, dissolved gases that tell stories of ancient climates. When that drop finally rises again, it will release its history back to the surface, its long journey becoming nourishment for new life. Every wave you see upon the shore carries the memory of such travel, the record of water's thousand-year pilgrimage. There is something profoundly human in this rhythm. Our own blood moves as the ocean does, driven by gradients, directed by pulse, carrying heat and sustenance through intricate channels. The heart beats as the tides rise, both steady and restless. We too are made of currents, of thoughts flowing through memory, of breaths passing through lungs, of emotions drifting from surface to depth. The calm we feel beside the sea may come from recognition, from some deep part of us remembering the movement from which it was born. When you swim in the ocean, you become briefly part of this vast circulation. The water that brushes your skin may have drifted across hemispheres. It may have passed through coral reefs in Indonesia, beneath the ice of Greenland, through trenches where sunlight never falls. It carries with it the minerals of mountains, the dust of deserts, the ashes of volcanoes. To float in it is to touch every corner of the planet at once. You are surrounded by movement that has no beginning and no end, only continuity. The current does not ask you to keep up. It carries you as it carries everything, patient and without judgment. At the surface, you may see only waves, but beneath you is the long, slow motion of eternity. The ocean is always in motion, yet it never hurries. Its purpose is not to arrive, but to circulate, to balance, to breathe. This is the lesson of the currents, that movement and stillness can coexist, that persistence need not be haste. The sea shows that progress is not always forward. It is sometimes circular, sometimes unseen, sometimes as simple as returning again and again to the same eternal rhythm. As evening descends, the surface reflects the sky's fading light. The currents below continue their journey, indifferent to night or day. They do not stop when the world sleeps. They move in silence, faithful to their path. The stars above drift slowly west, and the waters below drift east, each following its own celestial course. Between them, the earth turns, balanced by the exchange of motion and rest. If you stand on the shore and listen long enough, you can almost hear it, the deep murmur beneath the waves, the quiet sound of distance being erased. That is the pulse of currents, the earth's hidden breath. It has moved since before life began and will continue long after our own tides have passed. It is the motion that connects all others, the circulation that binds air to ocean, ocean to land, and life to everything it touches. And within that endless movement, there is peace, a rhythm vast enough to contain both storm and stillness, both beginning and return. 20. The memory of water. Every drop of water holds a story. It is older than the mountains, older than the trees, older even than the first flicker of life that swam through the seas. The water that touches your skin has moved through countless forms: cloud, river, ocean, ice, rain, and mist, endlessly circling through time. It has witnessed eras come and go, carrying whispers of everything it has touched. In this way, the ocean is not merely a body of water but a living archive. It remembers. It holds within its shifting depths the traces of every life, every storm, every dawn that has ever fallen upon the world. When you stand by the sea and feel its mist upon your face, you are standing in the presence of memory itself. Scientists tell us that no water truly leaves the planet. The molecules that flow through our bodies are the same that once filled the lungs of whales, the same that froze upon the wings of ancient glaciers, the same that fell as rain upon the first forests. Water is the keeper of continuity. It dissolves, moves, reforms, but it never disappears. In every transformation, it carries with it the fingerprints of its past, the salts of ancient seas, the minerals of vanished rivers, the breath of creatures long gone. It is the perfect historian, fluid, patient, and eternal. The ocean is the greatest vessel of that memory. Within its layers, it stores records written not in ink or stone, but in temperature, salinity, and current. Scientists lower instruments deep into the water to read these clues, learning from them the history of climate and motion. The cold depths remember ice ages. The warm shallows recall ages of bloom. The chemistry of each layer is a letter from a different century, a whisper from a time when the world breathed differently. Even the sediments on the seafloor, those quiet drifts of silt and shell, are pages of a book being written grain by grain. To study them is to listen to the earth, telling its own story, slowly, endlessly, through water. But the memory of water is not only scientific, it is spiritual. Across cultures, people have long believed that water holds emotion, that it can carry both sorrow and healing. Ancient temples built their fountains not just for ritual cleansing but for reflection, a way to look inward through the calm of the surface. In many traditions, to release something into the water, a leaf, a flower, a thought, is to entrust it to forgetfulness and renewal. The sea, they believed, remembers in order to forgive. Its memory is not a burden but a cycle of transformation, where even grief dissolves into something softer and returns as calm. Perhaps that is why people are drawn to the ocean in moments of change. When the heart is heavy, the mind instinctively seeks the horizon. Standing before the vastness, one feels the smallness of one's troubles and their place in a much older rhythm. The waves, repeating without end, suggest that all pain is temporary, all joy fleeting, yet both are part of the same eternal movement. The water remembers storms, but does not keep. It knows how to return to stillness. To look at the sea after loss is to glimpse resilience in motion, to see that healing is not forgetting, but flowing forward. The sound of the waves is the voice of memory made audible. Each crash upon the shore is a syllable of an infinite language, repeating patterns older than any word. The sea speaks in cycles, not sentences. It does not tell stories from beginning to end. It loops them, overlaps them, dissolves them, reminding us that time is not a line, but a tide. Every sound it makes is both echo and origin. The wave that breaks at your feet might carry the energy of a storm born on the other side of the world, its pulse reshaped by thousands of miles of travel. To listen to the sea is to listen to the world thinking aloud, remembering itself in every motion. water holds memory in other, quieter ways. When you submerge your hand into a stream, the coolness that spreads through your skin is more than temperature. It is contact with an unbroken continuity that reaches back to the dawn of the world. The molecules that brush against you might once have risen as steam from a volcano or drifted as ice in a polar night. When you drink a glass of water, you are taking into yourself a history older than language, older than thought. You are drinking time, condensed into transparency. The memory of water is not bound to a single place. It is everywhere, flowing through rivers and clouds, through bodies and dreams. The sea's memory extends to life itself. Within its depths, DNA began its long experiment. The code that would become coral and jellyfish, whale and human. Every cell that divides still carries traces of that oceanic beginning, a saline whisper in its fluid, a rhythm that mimics the tide. Even our sleep follows this ancestral memory. Our hearts slow, our breathing deepens, our minds drift in waves. The body remembers what the brain has forgotten, that we are made of the sea, that our balance and our blood are echoes of its chemistry. To live is to continue the ocean's remembering in another form. If you were to dive deep into the open sea, where sunlight fades and pressure thickens, you would find the oldest water on Earth. It has not seen the surface for centuries, perhaps millennia. Down there, beneath the thermoclines and the drifting snow of plankton, it moves slowly, carrying the coolness of ancient winters. When it eventually rises again through upwelling currents, it brings with it nutrients, minerals, and history. The plankton that bloom in this revived water feed fish, which feed larger creatures, which feed the land. Thus, the ocean's memory sustains life in ways unseen. The past nourishes the present. The deep breathes into the shallow. Human culture, too, has absorbed this principle. Sailors once poured offerings into the sea before long voyages, trusting it to remember their prayers. Poets have long compared memory to the ocean deep, unpredictable, both keeper and eraser. Artists find inspiration in its ability to transform, to shift from calm to tempest, from translucence to opacity. In myths, water is always the beginning and the end, the source and the return. It is the element of cleansing, but also of truth. It reveals what it reflects. To gaze into it is to see not just the world, but the self, refracted and reassembled, as fluid and infinite as the sea itself. Modern science has begun to confirm what ancient intuition always knew, that water carries traces of what it touches, that it holds within its molecular bonds the faintest impressions of energy and motion. Even the most advanced instruments can detect signatures of substances long dissolved, proof that water never forgets. It is both archive and messenger, carrying the Earth's story from one age to the next. Perhaps this is why the sound of rain brings such comfort. It is the voice of the past, returning gently to the present, the reminder that nothing is ever truly lost. When you stand by the shore and watch the tide fold upon itself, you are seeing time in motion. Each wave rises, falls, and is replaced, yet the ocean itself remains. Its memory is not in the individual waves, but in their repetition, their persistence. Likewise, our own memories change, blur, and fade, but the rhythm of remembrance remains an inner tide that ebbs and flows with the seasons of our lives. We are not separate from the sea's memory. We are one of its expressions. As night descends, the water reflects the sky's endless depth, stars flickering upon its surface like thoughts rising from sleep. The sound of the tide becomes slower, steadier, a heartbeat echoing through the dark. You realize that the sea does not remember in words or images, but in rhythm, in the simple act of continuing. It holds everything, releases everything, and holds again. The memory of water is not nostalgia, it is renewal. It teaches that the past is not a weight to be carried, but a current to move. Within, that to remember is to transform. The ocean shows that every story, every loss, every joy becomes part of something larger, folded into the rhythm of existence. And when you close your eyes to the sound of the waves, when you breathe in the salt air and feel the mist settle on your skin, you too become part of that, remembering another ripple in the sea's endless mind, another note in its eternal song.